Chapter 2693. The smile on Yan Xiaoyi's face instantly froze. She turned her head. As expected, she saw two figures walking in from the open door. Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as a faint smile hung on her lip. If one took a closer look, one would be able to tell the deep meaning behind her smile. I didn't restrain myself. Qiao Jin scratched the back of his head as that ordinary-looking face was filled with curiosity. Not waiting for Yan Xiaoyi to open her mouth, Yiqing Luo very kindly took the initiative to remind her. If you were to control yourself, Xiaoyi would not have said that young people need to control themselves earlier. She's just shy and intentionally used this sentence to indirectly remind you to control yourself. Facing Yiqing Luo's serious nonsense, Qiao Jin expressed his utmost belief. After that, he put on a serious look. Hugging Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder, he spoke in a low voice guiltily. Sorry, Xiaoyi, I didn't consider your feelings. I will definitely restrain myself and not let you be too tired. Yan Xiaoyi, the usually astute Qiao Jin, why was it that when he was in front of Yiqing Luo, he was always swayed by one sentence from Yiqing Luo? He really was a blockhead. Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh as she pulled Dmo Xian to sit beside Yan Xiaoyi. Just as she sat down, her light laughing voice was transmitted into Yan Xiaoyi's ears. He will only turn into a blockhead when it comes to matters related to you. Yan Xiaoyi was struggling against Qiao Jin's hands as she paused slightly. Yan Xiaoyi swiftly turned her head sideways. She saw that the young lady who spoke earlier had already turned into a gentle and helpless little bird as she snuggled into Dmo Xian's arms, acting coquettishly as she said something. Xiaoyi, are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? I have no prior experience, I will. Qiao Jin saw Yan Xiaoyi not saying a word and instantly panicked. Yan Xiaoyi immediately raised her hand and sealed Qiao Jin's mouth. Thinking back, this man seemed to really, as long as it was related to her. His intelligence was totally not on the line. This kind of private matter. How could he say it out directly in front of so many people? Didn't she want her face? But it was precisely because of Yiqing Luo's provocation. The others didn't continue to tease Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian about being late. The Peach Blossom restaurant's business had been booming in recent days. Even the dishes that Yiqing Luo and the others were eating had become much more plentiful. Yiqing Luo picked up her chopsticks and was about to pick up some food. Beside her ear, a man's voice filled with anticipation sounded. Lil Luoer, I want you to feed me. Yiqing Luo's chopsticks trembled and almost dropped on the table. She looked sideways at Dmo Xian and Dmo Xian's jet-black peach blossom eyes blinked as he looked at her attentively. His smile was filled with anticipation. Earlier you said that you're in the wrong, so little Luoer wants to feed me, to please me. That gaze was focused on her, as if she was the only one in his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart instantly softened as she picked up the chopsticks, picked up a piece of tofu and blew on it until the tofu's temperature was acceptable before she brought the chopsticks to Dmo Xian's lip. The smile between Dmo Xian's brows was filled with satisfaction. He opened his mouth and ate the tofu that Yiqing Luo fed him. He ate contentedly. The more Yiqing Luo fed, the happier she was. Especially when she saw Dmo Xian's handsome face being stuffed till it was round, it was so adorable that her young lady's heart was about to burst. The surrounding crowd expressed that they hadn't even eaten their meal and were already stuffed to death by the dog food. Chapter 2694. After all, to be able to make the noble and elegant Overlord like this, so adorable to the point of exploding, a rare occurrence in 100 years. Only this time, they naturally wouldn't make a sound to disturb him. Once the Overlord was cured, they could use his dark history to threaten the Overlord. Thinking about it, the future was infinitely beautiful. Yiqing Luo fed Dmo Xian a mouthful while feeding him. The curvature of her lips was still sweet. Yiqing Luo sent another chopstick to Dmo Xian's lip. no matter how fast she fed him. Diamo Xian would immediately open his mouth and stuff food into Yi Qing Luo's mouth. No matter how hurriedly he ate, how cute he looked when he was being fed. But the man's natural elegance was still there. Diamo Xian had nothing in his mouth at this moment. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's chopsticks coming over, he opened his mouth and bit it. Yi Qing Luo couldn't keep her chopsticks as she looked up at him. She saw the man's peach blossom eyes overflowing with a teasing smile. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Ah Xian. Diamo Xian bit her chopsticks as his lips curled up in delight. But he refused to let go of her chopsticks. After a while, the surrounding people's eyes were filled with teasing smiles. Yi Qing Luo realized that he was after all the Overlord, so she couldn't continue to be so adorable. She stretched out her hand and pinched his face. Be good, Ah Xian, let go first, everyone is watching. He smiled and loosened the chopsticks that he was clenching tightly. That pair of chopsticks was imprinted with a man's teeth mark. Yi Qing Luo stared at him angrily as her little hand used force and pinched his face fiercely. Then, her fair cheeks turned slightly red. Yi Qing Luo then gave a light humph. She was about to let go, but she saw Diamo Xian suddenly raised his hand and covered his face, and covered the hand that she placed on his face with his big palm. A piercing pain made Diamo Xian's heart feel a twitching pain. Suddenly, his mind was in a mess. It was as if a large snowflake had bloomed in front of him. Yi Qing Luo, who was held by Diamo Xian, thought that he was going to act coquettishly again. But when she saw that pale face, Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped fiercely. Immediately following that, Diamo Xian's smiling eyes gradually lost its radiance. In an instant, it was as if a deep pool had sunk into a deathly stillness. Ah Xian? Yi Qing Luo panicked and immediately placed her other hand on Diamo Xian's face, calling out his name. His hand had yet to come close. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew over. Pa! Yi Qing Luo's hand was burning with pain. The chopsticks in his hand also fell to the ground. The people around didn't even have time to recover from the sudden change. Even Yi Qing Luo was still in a daze. His wrist was suddenly tightened by an enormous force. She frowned in pain. Woman, what kind of person do you think I am? Do you think you can make me like you? The cold voice was devoid of any warmth. Yi Qing Luo's delicate body trembled slightly. She fluttered her eyelashes and slowly looked up. Sure enough, he was met with a pair of eyes that had been gentle and affectionate just a second ago, but were now incomparably cold and detached. Familiar, yet strange. The centrifugal worm had taken effect. Yi Qing Luo slightly pursed her pink lips, slightly turned her wrist, and pulled her hand out. The expression on her face was very calm. The moment the young lady's soft arm was pulled out, Diamo Xian unconsciously tightened his fingers, as if he wanted to hold her tightly. Chapter 2695. His heart ached even more. Diamo Xian's consciousness became more and more blurry. He seemed to use all the strength in his body to retract his outstretched hand. He closed Mo's eyes. This wasn't a reaction he should have. This girl. Over and over again, he had used various means to get close to him. She touched him, teased him, and even shamelessly kissed him forcefully. If it was any other woman, who would dare to be so presumptuous in front of him, he would have killed her long ago. But why couldn't he do it? When facing her, there will always be the feeling of being unable to control one's emotions. What was going on? Overlord, you. The other people at the table also stood up. They creased their brows as they carefully called out to him. You don't remember Qing Luo? Do I need to remember her? Diamo Xian's voice turned gloomy as his face darkened. Peach shrank her neck. It's fine if you don't remember. Why are you so angry? If I say I don't remember, then I don't remember. Diamo Xian's gaze turned cold, like a sharp blade, shooting straight at Peach. Peach quickly shrunk behind the ghost warrior. Yi Qing Luo quietly watched this scene in front of her. She knew it very well. It was Diemo with the centrifugal venom acting up. He remembered everyone, but not him. Whether it was in the past or everything that they had experienced together. In Diemo memories, there was only him alone. He remembered everyone in the Devil class. He remembered everyone in the Three Springs sect. It was just that he did not remember her. However, he didn't remember, but she did. Even if it was Diemo with the centrifugal worm acting up. She knew his habits like the back of her hand. For example now, the reason why Diemo was so furious at the peach. In the end, it was all because of her. Diemo thought that Peach was reminding him that some time ago, because of the centrifugal venom, he had a rebellious mentality towards her, and wanted to torture and kill those people from the various powerhouses in Joy Sect. She kissed him forcibly. Diemo did not want to remember this matter. He didn't want to remember that he had been molested and kissed by a woman. That was why he was so angry. Was he unable to accept being kissed by her? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly, revealing a sense of desolation. Her pink lips pursed slightly as she raised her charming eyes and fixed her gaze on Diemo. The person who made you angry is me. Why do you have to take it out on an innocent person? You also know that you've offended this lord? When Diemo heard her voice, his heart surged with an indescribable rage. Yiqing Luo raised her hand. On the back of her hand, the red mark left behind by Diemo slap was extremely clear and had yet to dissipate. I kissed you and you made a move on me. We don't owe each other anything. Huh. Diemo narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes, his eyes filled with murderous intent, as though he was ridiculing Yiqing Luo for overestimating herself. Towards Diemo invisible pressure, Yiqing Luo was totally fearless. She slowly curled up her lips and looked at him with a faint smile. The great Overlord, who is said to be omnipotent, is afraid of the feelings of a little girl like me? This lord is afraid? Diemo seemed to have heard something funny as his eyes turned cold. In this lord's eyes, you're just a woman with ulterior motives. Do you really think that relying on Ghost Marshal to protect you, you can strut around in front of this lord? Chapter 2696. Miao Yi wasn't here. She didn't know what method to use to wake Diemo up. She still remembered the last time. It was all because of her kiss. Right now, she could only choose to use a kiss to awaken Diemo consciousness. Only by letting Diemo fight with the centrifugal worm would he be able to break free from it and wake up. Yiqing Luo understood Diemo. Naturally, she knew how to provoke him. And the most important prerequisite of this method was Diemo body that loved her, and the soul that loved her. Even if under the erosion of the centrifugal worm, Diemo had forgotten who she was, and absolutely could not bear to really kill her. What she relied on was Diemo love for her. Indeed, just as Yiqing Luo's voice fell, Diemo expression suddenly turned gloomy. His seemingly watery peach blossom eyes surfaced a dangerous cold glint. This woman really wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin. Goading. His voice had just fallen when his body turned into an afterimage. No one could tell when he took action. His body was already standing in front of Yiqing Luo. Getting close, the man's elegant sandalwood scent had already seeped into her nose. Her long curly lashes fluttered, her pink lips curled slightly, between her brows there was an overflowing allure. Why, don't dare. Her words fell. She groaned in pain. The man's slender fingers, without any tender feelings for the fairer sex, locked onto her lower jaw. He bowed his head. The peerless face enlarged in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's lower jaw hurt, but her smile was still there. The corners of her lips even curled into an extremely shallow cold arc facing Diemo approaching face. She didn't close her eyes like an ordinary lady. Instead, she used this kind of enchanting ridiculing gaze, staring straight at him. Just when their lips were only a finger's distance apart, Yi Zichen's expression suddenly changed. Diemo Xian suddenly stopped. His brows creased, maintaining such a close distance, looking at her with cold eyes. The young lady refused to be outdone, fearless. This scene could be said to be extremely pleasing to the eyes. The man was handsome, the woman was beautiful, and both had a strong aura. Visually, it created a very different visual sensation. The two of them maintained this posture for about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. The man's warm breath. It was as though Yi Qing Luo's face was tainted with his unique scent. She narrowed her eyes. Suddenly, he leaned his head forward. His hand also grasped Diemo Xian's wrist. Following that, he exerted his strength and pressed Diemo Xian against the tightly shut door. Yi Qing Luo's action. No one had expected this. Even Diemo Xian. They were all stunned for a moment. But, not waiting for him to get angry, what greeted him was the unique fragrance of a young girl. That familiar softness fell directly on his lips. Diemo Xian's eyes darkened. The second time. This was the second time he had been forcefully kissed by this woman. The crowd at the side. What the f***ck? Qing Luo was just too domineering. Such a queen, she was so handsome that she had no friends. In this world, the only one who dared to forcefully kiss the Overlord was probably Queen Qing Luo alone. Yi Qing Luo had no time to care about everyone's inner world. She kissed the man's lips hard. Her soft body pressed against him tightly. A hand held his wrist tightly. There really was a kind of the déjà vu of a man forcing a good woman. The more he kissed, the deeper Diemo Xian's eyes sunk. He wanted to push Yi Qing Luo away. In fact, it was an easy thing to do. But when his eyes met with the young lady's pair of devilish and enchanting eyes. Chapter 2697. He let the girl do whatever she wanted in this position. It wasn't until the stabbing pain in his heart that his consciousness gradually became clear. Only then did he realize the situation he was in. His face darkened. With a flip of his hand, he grabbed the young girl's collar and pulled her away. The girl's soft and fragrant scent was a little further away from him. However, the restlessness in his heart caused his expression to darken. It was as if he would explode at any moment. You! Diemo Xian gritted his teeth, his peach blossom eyes overflowing with viciousness. Yi Qing Luo turned her head over. Her pink lips were still stained with a trace of glitter. She lifted her lips and smiled brightly. She even deliberately stuck out her pink tongue and licked her lips under Diemo Xian's gaze. The alluring look in her eyes became more and more obvious. Why? You don't like being kissed? It was an extremely seductive action. This caused Diemo Xian's heart to suddenly stop. It was as if something was surging towards the place 3 inches below. A trace of red light flashed across his eyes. This woman, he really needs to be taught a lesson. At this moment, Diemo Xian was completely unaware. His current thought was not to kill the woman in front of him. Instead, he wanted to press this woman under his body and ravage her mercilessly. Let her cry. Make her beg for mercy. Diemo Xian's eyes turned darker and redder. Yi Qing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she stared at his face. Her brows were still that enchanting. She could clearly see the emotions in the man's eyes. She chuckled softly, and her devilish aura intensified. Taking the opportunity when Diemo Xian wasn't paying attention, she purposely leaned towards Diemo Xian's lips and once again kissed him. The fragrance was somewhat alluring. Diemo Xian was shocked by this action as he swiftly let go of Yi Qing Luo's collar. His figure, at this moment, retreated to a distance of 10 steps away from Yi Qing Luo. He looked as if he had been frightened by something. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles. Overlord, are you shy? Diemo Xian's expression was so gloomy that it was terrifying. Especially after he heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, his gaze turned extremely low. Yi Qing Luo could feel that under his gaze, her entire body seemed to be enveloped in a chilly intent. His blood gradually became ice-cold. However, she forced herself to hold on and suppress the chill in her heart. He maintained his smile. Scram! Icy cold words were spat out from Dmo Xian's mouth with great force. His whole body was tense, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart. Scram! Yiqing Luo held back her smile as she murmured this word. Her brows rose as she smiled again. Overlord, you can't bear to kill me? Even if he had forgotten her, those who had been corroded by the centrifugal goo would be estranged from her. Ultimately, Dmo Xian couldn't bear to kill her. She had made the right bet, regardless of whether he was a canine pet. Or had he forgotten her now? They were all so arrogant. Do you really think I won't kill you? Dmo Xian couldn't suppress his emotions any longer, and with another flash, he appeared in front of Yiqing Luo, grabbing her wrist with one hand. The feeling in his hand, soft and smooth. It was as if a bewitching fragrance was drifting over. She did not struggle. She maintained her enchanting smile and stared at him. His heart tightened and his eyes turned even colder. Suddenly, he pulled open the room door and grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist, directly throwing her out. Yiqing Luo's body staggered a little. She steadied herself. He could hear a series of voices rising and falling in his ears. What's going on? Overlord threw Miss Yi out of the room? Could it be? Could it really be like what the rumors said, that Overlord has already disliked Miss Yi? Chapter 2698. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Her gaze swiftly swept across the surroundings. She saw that the originally deserted second floor was now filled with people. The one who surrounded the front looked somewhat familiar. Wasn't it those few forces from Qin Yu sect? Behind them, the second floor was filled to the brim, even those who lined up all the way to the stairs. There were other forces and quite a number of onlookers. There were at least 50 to 60 people in total. She frowned as she looked at Tao Zi, who was following closely behind. Tao Zi also shook her head blankly. These people apparently heard that Dmo Xian and Gui Wu were having a meal in this private room. So each and every one of them specially blocked the entrance. He wanted to see what the legendary Lord Overlord looked like, and also wanted to have some relations with the legendary Overlord. But who was the one who leaked this news? After Dmo Xian threw Yiqing Luo out of the private room, he then realized that there were so many people surrounding them. He frowned slightly as he recalled his earlier actions and subconsciously looked towards Yiqing Luo. He saw the young lady's face was slightly pale. A pair of charming eyes swept across the crowd. Facing those ridiculing her, extremely unbearable words. She seemed as though she didn't hear anything. So stubborn that it made one's heart ache. Suddenly, Dmo Xian's pupils shrank. Heartache? His heart ached for that frivolous young lady? Dmo Xian suppressed this thought and turned around to return to the private room. But from the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of a figure in the crowd. His expression congealed slightly. Suddenly his footsteps turned and walked directly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The surrounding ridiculing Yiqing Luo stopped abruptly. Yiqing Luo heard the footsteps behind her and immediately shifted her gaze, from the surrounding customers, back to Dmo Xian. The man's thin lips were tightly pursed, the expression on his face was exceptionally grave. His footsteps were hurried, bringing along a gust of cold wind. Overlord took the initiative to walk towards Miss Yi again. Is he preparing to coax Miss Yi? From his expression, it doesn't seem like it. In the discussion, there were a few jealous voices. In my opinion, Overlord has long disliked Yi Luo. It's just that Yi Luo loves to pester you, and he doesn't want to give up his backer, the Overlord. Yi Luo must have heard that the Overlord was having a meal in the Peach Blossom restaurant, so he came here to pester the Overlord. That's why he was driven out by the Overlord. The distance between Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo was getting closer and closer. There were a few who were ridiculing Yiqing Luo earlier, but now felt a little timid. Why do I feel that? Overlord is going to look for Yi Luo to apologize. I reckon that she really wants to coax Yi Luo. He's heading in the direction of Yi Luo. These people's words made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Something was not right. The person Dmo Xian was looking for. Not her. Dmo Xian's vision was not on her at all. Moreover, his expression was so grave, she pursed her lips, at the moment when Dmo Xian came over. She took the initiative to avoid his footstep. Coincidentally, Dmo Xian brushed past her side. He had no intention of stopping. Yi Qing Luo looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian was walking towards. When his gaze landed on that figure, he felt a chill run down his spine. Her charming eyes faintly floated a trace of fluctuation. Dmo Xian didn't even turn his head back as he walked towards that direction. Look, I told you, the Overlord didn't even take a look at her. Why don't you take a look at that face of yours, and still trying to seduce the Overlord? Pooey. Chapter 2699. Xiao Wu. Dmo Xian's voice was as indifferent as usual. However, that intimate form of address made the onlookers unable to remain calm at this moment. A tall and pretty figure walked out from the crowd. The lady was dressed in a dark blue long dress, and on her outer robe, there were large dark patterns which outlined a blooming gorgeous flower. The most breathtaking part was the woman's beautiful face. Under the dark slender eyebrows, that pair of bright eyes seemed to be condensed from thousands of years of frost. Cold and elegant, as though it was synonymous with the lady in front of him. Overlord. The lady's voice was also extremely melodious, with a hint of coolness. Dmo Xian frowned as he stood face to face with the lady. Why are you here? Me? The lady raised her brows as she raised her head in puzzlement. She looked past him and looked at Yi Qing Luo, who was standing at the same spot. Don't you know the reason why I'm here? Dmo Xian seemed to know who she was looking at as his brows knitted even tighter. I'm not sure, but Xiao Wu, this is Nirvana Realm. Your existence violates the balance of Nirvana Realm. The lady felt that something was amiss. Her beautiful eyes swept past those surrounding customers as she suddenly thought of those discussions earlier. You and Xiao Qing Luo quarreled? Xiao Qing Luo? Dmo Xian's eyes sunk slightly. Are you familiar with that lady? This time, it was the lady's turn to frown. Without waiting for the lady to ask, Yi Qing Luo finally made a move. She walked towards that lady, raised her hand and pressed on that lady's wrist. Xiao Wu, I'll tell you about this matter later. This lady was not someone else. She was precisely, because Dmo Xian extracted a part of his consciousness and turned it into a clone to follow beside Yi Qing Luo. She was worried that Dmo Xian would get into trouble in the upper realm and rushed over to check on the situation. There are too many people, let's enter the room first. Yi Qing Luo looked at the open door behind her. Jun Qing Wu narrowed her beautiful eyes as she followed Yi Qing Luo into the private room. Dmo Xian's face was gloomy as he looked at the lady who was chased out by him, walking back into the private room and pulling Xiao Wu in. His heart inexplicably surged with a sullen feeling. Extremely tense and irritated. His brows were almost knitted into a bundle. After a while, he strode towards the private room. The door of the private room was closed again in front of everyone's eyes. Those few people who ridiculed Yi Qing Luo earlier had an ugly expression on their faces. With the help of the few forces in the Qingyue clan, he said hesitantly, Husband and wife always quarrel. I think Miss Yi is just throwing a tantrum at His Majesty. What do you mean by throwing a tantrum? Who was Dizun? What right does she have to throw a tantrum to be with that ugly Yi Luo? Hearing this sentence, among those ladies who ridiculed Yi Qing Luo, a lady who was dressed in a white long dress, pretending to be elegant, was unable to conceal the jealousy on her face. The girl looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. Her figure, on the other hand, was exquisite like a dragon. It was curvy and perky as it should be. That's right. The Overlord ignored Yi Luo and walked towards that woman. It is obvious that the cold-looking, fairy-like woman is the Overlord's true love. The women around him nodded in agreement. Do any of you know who that woman is? When did such a beautiful woman appear in the northern wave continent? The Overlord called that woman Xiao Wu. This form of address is very intimate. I feel that her relationship with the Overlord is not simple. Asterisk. Chapter 2700. That lady seems to know Miss Yi. She should be a friend of the Overlord. What friend? Can a man and a woman be friends? Earlier the Overlord directly walked past Yi Luo and towards that lady. It doesn't look like an ordinary friend. In the midst of the discussion, suddenly the lady beside the white-robed lady covered her mouth and laughed. Why do I feel that? That is the official wife of the Overlord? The moment the lady said that, the surroundings immediately turned silent. The next moment there was a sudden uproar. In that case it really looks like it. The moment she came, the Overlord immediately left Yi Luo. Yi Luo's subservient look, one look and you can tell that he is someone's concubine. You didn't see, just now Yi Luo supported the Overlord's official wife all the way into the private room. Yes, I saw it. Humans were like this. One of them started. Then there would be people who started to imagine the aftermath without leaving any leeway. Then they would imagine it as a real thing. Then more and more people would continue to spread the continuation of the imagination. The imagination would then become real. The white-robed lady originally had a gloomy expression because of that lady mentioning the official wife. But after hearing the crowd's discussion at the back, the white-robed lady's brows was finally tainted with a smirk filled with hostility. The commotion outside. The few people who were locked in the private room didn't hear it. At this moment, the atmosphere in the private room was exceptionally strange. Except for Gui Wu, who was still minding his own business eating. The others were sitting upright on their chairs, their gazes uniformly staring at them. Yiqing Luo stared at Dmo Xian's icy cold gaze and directly pulled Junqing Wu over, letting her sit beside her. Junqing Wu's gaze shifted between Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo's calm countenance, she frowned. Did you two quarrel? I wanted to quarrel with him. Yiqing Luo sighed helplessly. What exactly happened? Junqing Wu pursed her lips tightly. When I went to the upper realm, his eyes lit up at the mention of you. It wasn't easy for him to get the chance to come back from the upper realm, and he rushed back without stopping. How did it become like this? Yiqing Luo hooked her arm around Junqing Wu's neck and whispered 3 words into her ear. Centrifugal worm. Junqing Wu's pupils suddenly widened as she looked at Dmo Xian. Yes. Yiqing Luo nodded. We can only wait for the Sacred Maiden's selection to find a way to cure the goo before we can end this situation. Junqing Wu was speechless. How much longer are we going to discuss till? Dmo Xian's voice was filled with a thick chill. His eyes sunk as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Not knowing why, when he saw Yiqing Luo whispering to Junqing Wu, that gloomy feeling surged into his heart again. Especially when he saw Yiqing Luo and Junqing Wu sticking to each other's ears. That feeling of irritation almost made him unable to control his emotions. No matter how Dmo Xian tried to control his emotions, that furious voice made Junqing Wu and Yiqing Luo raise their eyes. Especially Junqing Wu, an obvious shock surfaced on her face. In Junqing Wu's understanding, Dmo Xian had always been a godlike existence. Nothing, no one could affect him. The only one who could see a different emotion from Dmo Xian was Yiqing Luo. These 3 words. Chapter 2701. But now Dmo Xian couldn't even control his own emotions. It was because Yiqing Luo? Not waiting for Junqing Wu to react. A gust of biting cold hurricane struck and wrapped around her arm, pulling her backwards. This pulling force was sudden and domineering. Junqing Wu couldn't stand properly and knocked against the chair she was sitting on. She creased her brows in pain. However, the man who created this hurricane didn't notice this. Instead, he used more strength and flung her behind him. The mahogany chair fell to the ground with a loud crash. Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo stood up abruptly and looked at the man who went crazy for no reason. If you're unhappy with me, just come at me. Why do you need to vent your anger on Xiao Wu? Dmo Xian's expression turned colder. His eyes met with Yiqing Luo's eyes. After a while, he seemed to be threatened by the young lady's urgent gaze. His face was gloomy as he waved his sleeves and the hurricane suddenly dissipated. Junqing Wu's body swayed slightly as she suddenly lost the pulling force of that hurricane. Her leg, because of the earlier knock against the chair, couldn't take the force for a moment and fell to the side. That stunning face was slightly pale. Xiao Wu. Yiqing Luo's footsteps swayed as she directly passed by Dmo Xian and swiftly caught Junqing Wu. Her speed was very fast. When she brushed past Dmo Xian, her shoulder accidentally knocked against Dmo Xian's body. Her arm caught hold of Junqing Wu firmly, and she immediately helped her to sit down on the spot. That collision had caused Dmo Xian's tall and sturdy body to take a small step back. But the young lady who knocked against him didn't even look at him. Thinking of this, Dmo Xian's arrogance seemed to have fallen to the bottom. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed into frost at this moment. He fixed his gaze on the young lady who was half squatting on the ground, checking the injury on Junqing Wu's leg. His ink-black peach blossom eyes were like 10,000 years old ice, shattered into pieces of ice shards in his eyes. He released a low pressure. Everyone in the house could sense it. Yiqing Luo was no exception. After bandaging Junqing Wu's wounds, she called Yan Xiao Yi and Peach over and helped Junqing Wu over. After doing all of this, she clapped her hands and turned around. She was not afraid of the man behind her. He looked like he wanted to strangle her. Instead, she stepped forward, raised her hand and grabbed his collar. An elbow was placed horizontally in front of his chest. Dmo Xian, what exactly do you want? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and her voice was no longer like before, intentionally pretending to be coquettish. Haven't you messed around enough? Kissing him did not suppress the centrifugal goo. Yiqing Luo already didn't know what to do to make Dmo Xian return to the loveworm. He could hear the anger in Yiqing Luo's tone. Dmo Xian's eyes sunk. An indescribable gloominess spread in his heart. Wasn't she trying to pester him? Now it was all for a woman. Speaking to him in such a tone? Because he had injured Junqing Wu's leg. She was even disdainful of his deliberate flattery? Yes. He was very clear. Right from the start, Yiqing Luo had been seducing him, forcefully kissing him. Although it seemed overbearing, but she had been intentionally trying to please him. Even if she forcefully kissed him, she carried that kind of cautiousness, but now, because of another unimportant lady, she treated him coldly? Chapter 2702. Overlord's begging for a kiss expression. Don't tell me. You're addicted to my forceful kisses? Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile, tilted her head, looking extremely mischievous. Dmo Xian's face sunk instantly. Yiqing Luo laughed wantonly. At the same time, she slowly leaned her body towards Dmo Xian. She thought that Dmo Xian would immediately move away because of her word. But unexpectedly, Dmo Xian didn't move at all. He allowed her delicate body to stick to his hard chest. The distance between the two of them instantly became very close. Under everyone's gaze, neither of them flinched. If it was usual times, it had always been Yiqing Luo who was teased by Dmo Xian until her face turned red. But now Yiqing Luo's thoughts were not on teasing. He didn't move. She then leaned closer, raised her head, slowly got close to his face. Between her charming eyes, there was a teasing cold intention, not concealed. Dmo Xian still didn't move. Both eyes stared intently at that beautiful face which was getting closer. That captivating red-pink lips, still stained with an alluring luster. As though it was tempting him to bend down and take away this tempting fruit. The young lady's words. The young lady's actions. All of them were provoking his bottom line. He should push her away harshly. He should let her have a long memory. Not everyone could be so frivolous. But, when the young lady's fragrance hit him, he didn't want to leave this beauty. Just when the young lady's lips were already on his, he could almost feel a strand of soft hair brushing past his lips. But the young lady didn't come any closer. They just maintained this extremely ambiguous posture. Between her brows there was an icy smile. "Overlord, are you looking forward to it?" Her voice was deliberately bewitching. The slightly hoarse voice was like a cat's claw, scratching Dmo Xian's heart nonstop. Dmo Xian realized Yi Qing Luo's meaning, and immediately frowned fiercely. "You." The words just came out. Yi Qing Luo had already pressed against his chest, straightened up. The unique fragrance of a young girl suddenly dissipated. She retreated a few steps away from him, her expression unreadable. "Dmo Xian, no matter how you treat me, I love you, my heart aches for you, I'm willing to accept it, and I'm willing to pamper you, but I will never allow you to implicate others because of the matter between us." The last time the love gu acted up, he had injured Kitty Lee. This time, the poison of centrifugal force acted up and injured Jun Qingwu again. These were all things that she did not wish to see, nor would she allow to happen. At the moment when Yi Qing Luo retreated, Dmo Xian's expression had already turned extremely black. Especially after hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, his pupils turned extremely black. "Scram! Now get out!" His voice was tense. It was as if he was suppressing his extreme anger. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were indifferent as she wasn't afraid of his anger. She knew that her actions earlier had already let Dmo Xian know her bottom line. She was certain. Dmo Xian would definitely remember this bottom line of hers in his heart. Looking at Dmo Xian, who was on the verge of exploding with rage, the corners of his lips curled into a faint arc. Forget it. Her own man, she had to pamper him no matter what. She turned around and without any hesitation, she pulled the door open and was about to leave. "Qing Luo, don't be rash, the Overlord is only. The few people behind her immediately stood up to stop her. There were so many onlookers outside. If Yi Qing Luo went out alone, she didn't know how the rumors would spread. Chapter 2703. That smile. It was reflected in Dmo Xian's pupils. In his mind, another face appeared faintly. A devastatingly beautiful face. That face was also smiling at him, smiling. Suddenly, his heart felt a dull pain. It was the kind of dull pain that came from the depths of his soul, as if it was about to be torn apart. "Little Luo A hoarse voice, word by word, was spat out from his mouth with great difficulty, as if he had exhausted all the energy in his body. These 3 words made Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted. She quickly turned around and looked behind her. The man pressed one hand on his head, his tall body was swaying. His face was filled with pain as his features gradually distorted. That pair of ink-black peach blossom eyes were filled with a violent storm. Another bloodthirsty murderous intent. Another painful repression. Countless emotions made the man's breathing became more hurried. In his chest, something was surging violently. A painful groan spilled out from his mouth. Powerful and majestic energy kept pounding in his body. Ah Xian! Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled, as she wanted to rush over. That malevolent features man, blood-red peach blossom eyes, stared fiercely at her. That gaze was filled with absolute cold murderous intent, as if he wanted to tear her into pieces. Her footsteps abruptly stopped on the spot. The man's hoarse voice was like a saw cutting. "Go! Quickly go!" Yi Qing Luo seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move no matter what. "Go!" Another explosive roar. After Dmo Xian finished this roar, his entire body, as if he had lost all his energy, staggered a step backwards. He took a deep breath. That gaze which was filled with murderous intent was like a raging storm. The murderous intent was obvious. Student Yi, you leave first. Gui Wu, who had been leisurely eating his meal, slowly put down the chopsticks in his hand. His eyes were calm as his voice was deep and cold. The centrifugal worm is driving the Overlord to kill you. The Overlord is relying on his own willpower to suppress his murderous intent towards you. Yiqing Luo heard that. Her body was slightly stunned. Thinking back to earlier, Dmo Xian's cry of Lil Luo seemed to come from the depths of his soul, and thinking back to him hysterically asking her to leave. If she forgot about her Dmo Xian, he would only tell her to get lost, not leave. Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers slightly curled up. Mustering all his strength, he turned around and moved toward the door. Yes, she could not stay here to agitate Dmo Xian. She wanted to leave, until the goo worms in Dmo Xian's body quietened down. However, just as she turned around and took a few steps, her wrist was suddenly grabbed by an extremely strong force. Following that, her delicate body was pulled into a warm embrace. Lil Luo, don't go, don't leave me behind. The anxious tone, grievance and careful pleading voice made Yiqing Luo's back stiffen. The man's warm chest. It was a familiar smell. A reassuring warmth. This made Yiqing Luo's eyes redden with sourness. She tilts her head back. Sure enough, he saw a face that was as handsome as a god. His face was no longer cold like before. Instead, it was filled with attachment and affection for her. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo suddenly turned around and hugged him tightly. Ah Xian, are you alright? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Where does it hurt? Let's go to the Miao Gu family to look for Yi. Let's take a look at her. Chapter 2704. She buried her face into Dmo Xian's arms. She deeply inhaled his scent. In this way, she could pacify the anxiety and uneasiness in her heart. Lil Luo. Dmo Xian seemed to be in a daze, not understanding what Yiqing Luo's actions meant. He only knew. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw Yiqing Luo's departing back view without turning back. Dmo Xian tightened his grip on the person in his arms as his black eyes were burning, filled with possessiveness as he spoke softly. Lil Luo, I'm not feeling unwell. Don't leave me alone. I'm not leaving. Yiqing Luo hugged him tightly. One could faintly hear her voice choking with emotion. Dmo Xian sensed that her emotions were not right as he panicked and immediately hugged her shoulders, lifting her face. Lil Luo, why are you crying? Whoever bullied you, I'll take revenge for you. That pair of ink peach blossom eyes were filled with concern for her. Yiqing Luo's heart warmed up a little. Her lips twitched as she smiled. No one bullied me, I just want Ah Xian to hug me. Dmo Xian hugged her tightly obediently. The surrounding people heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this situation. At the most crucial juncture, the Overlord had finally recovered. If Yiqing Luo really left the cabin alone, the onlookers outside would definitely spread the rumors to be especially nasty. Although they weren't people who cared about rumors, but, most of the time, these negative rumors, it would create quite a lot of obstacles for others. This again. Jun Qingwu's cold expression couldn't hold on any longer. Her beautiful eyes stared at Dmo Xian in a daze. That handsome face which had, I'm a loyal dog, written all over it, was totally unable to overlap with that cold and overbearing Overlord earlier. Loveworm. Peach silently spat out 2 words, and, under the situation where there's no antidote, this kind of situation will happen frequently. Yan Xiaoyi nodded her head in agreement. Perhaps in the future, we will be able to see it every few to 5 days. Last moment, Sir Overlord was still overbearing and arrogant towards Qing Luo. The next moment, Sir Overlord will directly pounce over, hugging Qing Luo's thigh, begging her not to leave. Love Gu. Jun Qingwu's expression suddenly turned solemn. And the centrifugal Gu? Peach and Yan Xiaoyi nodded in unison. I'm afraid this is the Overlord's only dark history in his life. We have to remember it. Jun Qing Wu lowered her eyelids, the expression on her face becoming more and more dignified. The Overlord was actually poisoned by the love curse and the centrifugal curse, these two nemeses. Then, would his body be able to take it? Ever since the incident in the private room that day, no one went back to the restaurant to eat. However, many people at the entrance that day vividly recounted what had happened that day. This spread from 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. Almost the entire Northern Wave continent knew about it. Yi Luo was abandoned by the great Overlord. At the same time, everyone knew the Overlord's first wife, the real mistress of the Imperial Palace, had appeared. Regarding these rumors, Peach had thought of ways to explain. But not knowing why, the public opinion became more and more intense. On the contrary, her love life had been dragged into it. Yiqing Luo didn't have any special reaction when she heard all these. Chapter 2705. It wasn't difficult for Peach to trace the source of the public opinion. But, this time, Peach had met her match. After 3 consecutive days of confrontation, Peach wasn't able to gain any advantage from the other party. She couldn't even investigate the source of the public opinion. For this point, Yiqing Luo could only conclude that it was premeditated. They wanted to make use of this restaurant's matter to create rumors. The motive should be to destroy her. Yi Luo. But towards these, Yiqing Luo didn't pay much attention to it. Her heart and soul were all placed on Dmo Xian. That day, Dmo Xian was corroded by the centrifugal worm, and the scene of him fighting against it had really shocked Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo wanted to bring Dmo Xian to the Miao Gu family to ask Miao Yi about it. But Ghost Marshal didn't approve of her way of doing things. Miao Yi said before that only the Saint Pavilion's secret method could find a way to remove the love worm and centrifugal worm. Even if she went to look for Miao Yi now, it wouldn't help. What's more, it would mess up Miao Yi's thoughts for the Sacred Maiden selection. Yiqing Luo observed Dmo Xian for a few days. After confirming that Dmo Xian didn't have any other discomfort, then her heart, which was hanging in the air, was put down. Very soon, the day of Miao Gu family's Sacred Maiden selection was approaching. Miao Gu's invitation was also sent to Peach. Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't hesitate as they set off towards the Miao Stockade village. Everyone was still sitting in that ordinary carriage. It was so ordinary that it was totally unrecognizable in the crowd of carriages. Of course, the current Dmo Xian didn't like to be in the same sealed space with anyone other than Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian took a smaller carriage as they followed behind the big carriage. During this period of time, the goo worms in Dmo Xian's body had settled down. But occasionally, Dmo Xian would still switch between the two types of goo worms. Every single time, Yiqing Luo's heart would tighten. Centrifugal worm and love worm. These were two types of goo worms which countered each other at the same time in one's body. And occasionally it would switch modes. This was extremely harmful to the human body. Listen to Ghost Marshal's opinion. Yiqing Luo tried her best to stabilize Dmo Xian's emotions, not to make him overjoyed, nor to make him furious. Yiqing Luo expressed, during this period of time, she felt like she was dating 2 different types of handsome men at the same time. The journey to the Miao Stockade village was rather peaceful. Many carriages passed by one after another. They were all forces that were heading to the Miao Gu clan to participate in the Saintess selection. On the day of the Qinyuesek's sect master's birthday banquet, the ordinary carriage caused a commotion. Everyone looked at the seemingly ordinary carriage. None of them dared to underestimate him anymore. Who knows, the person walking out of the carriage might be someone you can't afford to offend. Because of this, the journey was peaceful. But, just as Yiqing Luo and the rest were about to reach the periphery of the Miao Gu family, Yiqing Luo's little carriage had met with trouble. A horse carriage flew over, directly blocking the small horse carriage and the horse carriage of Gui Wu and the others. Every part of the carriage was exquisite and luxurious. Then, he followed behind Gui Wu and the others. It was as if he was purposely blocking the small carriage's line of sight. If it was just cutting the queue, it would have been fine. But this luxurious carriage was obviously targeting Yi Qing Luo's carriage. The speed of it moving forward was comparable to a snail. Bit by bit, it moved forward slowly. Chapter 2706. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. She patted the arms around her waist and lowered her voice. Ah Xian, sit tight, I'll go take a look outside the carriage. The arms around her waist tightened. Yi Qing Luo smiled warmly. Nothing, just take a look. If there's any danger, I'll call you out to protect me. The arms around her waist loosened hesitantly, but still didn't let go. Yi Qing Luo smiled and gently stroked the back of his hand. Be good, we've agreed that you'll listen to me today, so I brought you along. You must be obedient. If I don't call you, don't come out. After saying that, she pulled away Dmo Xian's arms around her waist. She slowly turned around and faced Dmo Xian. She raised her slender fingers and gently pressed on Dmo Xian's face, which was filled with grievance and displeasure. Her fingertips lifted upwards and the man's lips curved upwards into a smile. Be obedient, don't make me angry. Hearing the word angry, Dmo Xian's eyes looked at her anxiously and mixed with panic. Lil Luor, don't be angry. I'll be obedient, I'll be obedient. That look was like a canine pet who was afraid of its owner's anger. So adorable that Yi Qing Luo's maiden heart burst once again. Her fingers slid down and supported Dmo Xian's chin. Immediately she lowered her head and gave a light kiss on Dmo Xian's lip. After coaxing Dmo Xian, Yi Qing Luo lifted the curtains and bent over to sit outside the carriage. What she saw was her own horse pulling the carriage. That horse's head was constantly rubbing against the carriage in front. Yi Qing Luo tugged on the horse's rope and stopped the horse from moving forward. Immediately she urged the horse to turn towards the other side. But unexpectedly, her horse had just deviated by a step. All of a sudden, two luxurious carriages rushed over from both sides of the originally empty road. Yi Qing Luo's carriage was not only unable to advance or retreat, it was also sandwiched on both sides. At this moment, how could Yi Qing Luo not understand? These carriages were obviously here for her in broad daylight. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she tugged on the horse's rope and stopped the carriage. As expected, the carriages that had been attacking her from both sides stopped as well. The carriage in front also stopped. 3 carriages surrounded a small carriage. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that someone was stirring up trouble. The carriages that were passing by, upon seeing this situation, all adopted an indifferent attitude. Those who were watching the fun were watching the fun. Those who left immediately left. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as her gaze darkened slightly, sweeping towards the 2 carriages beside her. The 2 coachmen were tall and sturdy. Their faces were filled with sinister smiles. Their profound ranks were also above the earth-profound realm. Seems like he came prepared. In the Nirvana realm, profound practitioners of the earth-profound realm could already be considered experts. Yi Qing Luo took a glance at the carriage, which had already gone far away. Clearly, Gui Wu and the others were holding on to the attitude of watching a good show, and weren't prepared to help settle the matter. Yi Qing Luo expressed that it was tiring to make a bunch of bad friends. She took a deep breath and pressed her fingers. It was better to deal with these troublemakers with his fists to save time. Her Ah Xian was still in the carriage. If it took too long, her Ah Xian would be worried. Both of you attack together, hurry up. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she threw a provocative look at the 2 coachmen. The common problem of Earth-profound realm cultivators was that they were overconfident. Yi Qing Luo's provocation made the 2 coachmen's expressions sunk. Chapter 2707. When Yi Qing Luo saw this, her smile became even more radiant. Her long and narrow eyes curved, invisibly outlining a chilling cold. The 2 horse grooms felt an inexplicable chill down their spines. Obviously, the young lady in front of them was smiling. But when she stared at them, it was as if an icy cold hand was tightly strangling their throats, strangling their hearts. What was going on? A young lady who looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old, how could she have such a powerful aura? The two horse grooms immediately had the intention to retreat. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her pink lips rose and her voice was filled with coldness. Why? Don't dare? If you don't dare, then scram. The icy cold words were full of evilness. Not waiting for the two horse grooms to react, a sharp cold laughter was heard from the carriage in front. Soon after, a woman dressed in white walked down from the carriage. Looking at the lady's face, she was about 18 or 19 years old. Her figure was excellent, curvy in all the right places. As she walked, every smile and frown was filled with a mature woman's charm. But Yiqing Luo looked at the lady's beautiful face. There was always a very strange feeling. She felt that this lady's temperament and that face was very incompatible. Miss Ye's tone is so arrogant. Do you think you have the protection of the Overlord? The lady's eyes, when looking at Yiqing Luo, were masked with a layer of undetectable jealousy and hatred. But this was jealousy and hatred. It didn't escape Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo raised her brows in interest. She was still curious. This lady in white looked so unfamiliar. Why was she so hostile towards her? Now, after hearing the lady in white's words, Yiqing Luo finally understood the reason behind it. So, this was Diamo Xian's rotten peach blossom again. Yiqing Luo laughed softly, her voice was very low, mixed with a trace of ridicule. Did Xiao Xian want her man? She had to see if she had that ability. What rotten peach blossom? Cut off one branch when it comes. Cut off a pear when it comes too. What are you laughing at? You look so ugly and you still have the cheek to seduce the Overlord? The white-robed lady saw the smile on Yiqing Luo's lips and was so infuriated that her fingers clenched into fists. Her delicate and beautiful facial features twisted bit by bit. His voice seemed to be covered in frost as he said through gritted teeth, "You're just a woman abandoned by His Majesty. Why are you so arrogant?" Yiqing Luo burst out laughing. "Even if you want to be abandoned by him, you don't have this chance. Of course I can be arrogant. You." The lady in white was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down as she stared at Yiqing Luo with a malevolent expression. Pestering the Overlord's whore, you only know how to use your own shamelessness to seduce the Overlord, and you still have the cheek to show off? If you're not convinced, aren't you shameless? Towards the white-robed lady's uncontrollable anger, Yiqing Luo was extremely calm. His voice was lazy and casual, as if he was just talking about the weather. The lady in white was infuriated. The venom in her eyes almost drowned Yiqing Luo. "Sister May, why are you wasting your breath on her? This kind of woman doesn't care about her own face. When she's disgusting, she's more disgusting than anyone else." A 16 to 17-year-old lady walked out of the carriage on the left. The lady was dressed luxuriously. Yiqing Luo had met her at Qinghua sect before, and she seemed to be a middle-sized powerhouse's daughter. She remembered that when they were at Qinghua sect's garden, Miao Rongrong had self-directed and self-acted, falling into the pond and Diamo Xian came. Chapter 2708. As though she couldn't wait to let Diamo Xian see her real face clearly. Presumably, this was also one of Diamo Xian's retarded admirers. The door of the carriage on the right opened and a woman walked out. Little sister's son is right. For a woman like Lady Yi who has long abandoned herself for the sake of power, it's useless no matter how much we talk to her. The woman slowly walked towards the white-clothed woman. When the lady's face appeared in front of Yiqing Luo's eyes, this indeed made Yiqing Luo stunned for a moment. She blinked her eyes and a meaningful look flashed across her eyes. This woman was somewhat related to her. To be more precise, he had a deeper relationship with one of her brothers. This woman was none other than a stranger. It was Yan Xiaoyi's elder sister, the eldest daughter of the Yan family, Yan Zhenfei. The memories of Yan Zhenfei. Yiqing Luo only stopped at that one time, when the dark forces invaded the West continent. She had originally wanted to kill Wolf Saint Law. It was because of this Yen Zhenfei that she escaped with the Wolf Saint technique through a secret passage. As a result, she did not manage to catch the Wolf Saint technique. He originally thought that Yen Zhenfei had already died in the hands of the Wolf Saint technique. He did not expect to meet her here. Moreover, he seemed to be living a carefree life. Seeing Yen Zhenfei, the woman in white's ferocity disappeared. She smiled and took Yen Zhenfei's hand. Yen Zhenfei narrowed her eyes, and a trace of disdain appeared on her beautiful face for the white-clothed woman. However, Yen Zhenfei did not push the lady in white away. Instead, she said arrogantly, "Sister Mei, Miss Yi was able to seduce the Dizun for such a long time not only because of her outstanding skills in that aspect, but also because of her eloquence." The woman in white nodded. Fei is right. We shouldn't waste any more time with Yi Luo. Yen Zhenfei arrogantly raised her chin as she sized Yi Qing Luo up coldly. Following that, she sneered. Imitating Yi Qing Luo, you've done your best to imitate her, but unfortunately, a fake is ultimately a fake. The last few words came out of her mouth one by one. The bite was extremely forceful. She was biting very proudly. When he heard the 3 words, Yi Qing Luo, that white-robed lady's petite body started to tremble slightly as her eyes instantly fell onto Yi Qing Luo. Seeing Yi Qing Luo remaining silent, Yen Zhenfei thought that she had poked right into Yi Qing Luo's thoughts as she smiled even more complacently. Everyone knows that the Overlord's true love is only Yi Qing Luo alone. As she said that, she sized up Yi Qing Luo from top to bottom. Red clothes, long hair like a fox, and a demonic and alluring temperament. That's how you manage to attract His Majesty's attention, right? Yen Zhenfei's words stunned the other 2 women. Big Sister Yen, what did you say? Imitation? Is she trying to imitate Lord Dizun's true love? The woman on the left side of the carriage, Sun Yutong, asked in surprise. Yen Zhenfei didn't bother about Sun Yutong as she continued to look at Yi Qing Luo, as though she wanted to see the panic on her face after being exposed. However, Yen Zhenfei was disappointed. On Yi Qing Luo's face, there wasn't any expression which Yen Zhenfei wanted to see. She only raised her brows as her lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. Yen Zhenfei's expression sunk as her voice turned even colder. Yi Luo, you fake. Without the Overlord's protection, I want to see what ability you have to safely take part in the Miao tribe's Sacred Maiden selection. Asterisk, the winner's name list is pinned at the top of the book reviews section. The winner's baby, please add Master Mo's private number to claim your prize. The deadline is November 19th. Chapter 2709. Counterfeit. Finally, the young lady who had been silent finally opened her mouth. Her voice still carried a hint of laziness that was unique to her. It sounds like this, Miss Yen. Looks like you and the so-called Yi Qing Luo are on good terms. Why do you have an attitude of standing up for her? Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved into a smile and the sparkling luster in her pupils were dazzling brilliance. Yen Zhenfei's pupils contracted as her arrogant face surfaced a sliver of anger. Who's standing up for that slut? I'm only reminding you that you're a counterfeit and no longer have any value, so you should disappear obediently and stop embarrassing yourself. The smile in Yi Qing Luo's eyes grew even deeper. Following that, under the 3 ladies' eyes, she slowly spat out a word. Oh! Yen Zhenfei's expression turned as white as a pot of ash. Sun Yutong and Mei's expressions turned extremely ugly. Following that, Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as her gaze swept across the 3 of them. You're done. Are you going to scram or fight? Don't waste time. This kind of arrogant attitude. It made the trio's dissatisfaction towards Yi Qing Luo skyrocket to the peak. All right. Yi Luo, do you really think you're Yi Qing Luo? You're merely a counterfeit who has lost the protection of the Overlord. Yen Zhenfei's eyes turned cold as her murderous intent manifested and a burst of profound energy shot out from both her palms. Did you really think that after imitating Yi Qing Luo's insolence, you're really Yi Qing Luo? The moment her palm landed, she didn't forget to shout out sharply, "Sun Yutong, Mei." The white-robed lady, who was Mei, didn't conceal her jealousy and hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. Upon hearing Yan Zhenfei's voice, her eyes were filled with murderous intent as she released her power. Her 5 fingers instantly turned into an illusory image as she charged towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Indistinctly, Mei's illusory fingers turned into sharp claws. The few spectators could see it clearly. Behind Yi Qing Luo's back, a black void started to spread. A sharp claw stretched out from that void. The fingers were all sharp and glinting sharply as it stabbed towards Yi Qing Luo's back. An illusory girl. It was as if he did not notice the changes behind him at all. It was like he placed all his attention on fighting against Yan Zhenfei. The onlookers all sighed at the girl. Without the protection of the Overlord, the only thing that awaited this young lady was death. She was just a girl who had been abandoned by Di Zun. There was no need for them to offend those 3 young misses for her sake. Yan Zhenfei and Yi Qing Luo were facing each other so naturally she could clearly see that sharp claw which appeared from the void behind Yi Qing Luo's back. Yan Zhenfei's lips curled into a vicious smile. The palm wind which was slapped towards Yi Qing Luo, at this instance, exploded with profound energy, as though the power of a raging storm, as it surged forward. A pincer attack. She refused to believe it. That bastard Yi Luo was still alive. Just as Yan Zhenfei was extremely complacent, her palm wind was about to land on Yi Qing Luo's chest. For some reason, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. An indescribable sense of danger invaded her body and mind. Yan Zhenfei's palm wind had a momentary pause. The young lady in front of her gave her an evil smile. Her curved brows made her long and narrow arc look even more devilish. That pair of vibrant eyes revealed a smirk which didn't look like a smile, yet not a smile. Yan Zhenfei seemed to have realized something as her pupils suddenly constricted, immediately wanting to leave. But it was too late. Chapter 27:10. Fast. What a fast speed! Yan Zhenfei looked at the disappearing young lady in disbelief. A thought that even she could not believe flashed across her mind. But the thought had yet to form. She had no time to think deeply about it. Bam, 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 a series of explosions were heard. On the ground there were pieces of cracks. Billowing airwaves surged, and in the air, there seemed to be a terrifying storm. There were a few other powerhouses' horse carriages which were overturned by this strong wind. The airflow spun rapidly. The air started to distort. That violent wave of qi gradually subsided. 2 faintly discernible figures were also revealed. The sharp claws clashed with the palm wind. The place where they clashed was mixed with raging profound qi. Ah! A miserable shriek was heard. One of the figures flew out violently. She flew for at least 10 meters before crashing into a big tree. That figure was rebounded by the tree's momentum and fell heavily onto the ground, while the other figure who was standing in the middle also retreated 2 steps. Suddenly, she raised one hand and clutched her chest. A mouthful of blood was spat out from her mouth. The surrounding airwave completely dissipated. It also revealed everything on this small path to everyone's eyes. Yan Zhenfei clutched her chest as her body swayed slightly. She stood there with a ghastly pale face. While 10 meters away, the white-robed lady laid on the ground as her white dress was dyed red with blood. Her fingers moved slightly. Sister Mei. Sun Yutong saw the figure on the ground and immediately rushed over. This scene fell into the eyes of the few spectators, and all of them revealed an incredulous expression. How did it become these 2 young ladies who were fighting in a mess? Weren't these 2 young ladies working together to deal with the Overlord's abandoned wife? Right, where was the Overlord's abandoned wife? When everyone thought of this, they started to look around, searching for Yi Qing Luo's figure. Giggle, giggle. Just at this moment, an ethereal laughter was heard in the air. That laughter was extremely melodious. Yan Zhenfei's back froze and her face turned pale. She immediately raised her head and looked in the direction of the voice. However, the voice seemed to come from all directions. Yan Zhenfei couldn't tell the direction where the sound came from. Everyone else felt the same way. Yan Zhenfei's breathing grew heavier. She pursed her lips and turned to walk towards her carriage. However, just as Yan Zhenfei moved her feet, a voice rang out. A gentle slap landed on her shoulder. A cold intent spread over Yan Zhenfei's skin. Yan Zhenfei's body instantly froze. "Miss Yan, are you in a hurry to leave? You haven't even dealt with me, a fake, and you're willing to leave?" The girl's clear and sweet voice floated into his ears. The distance between them was very close. What made Yan Zhenfei unable to restrain herself was a scream of terror coming from her throat. Quick, it was really fast. This girl called Yi Luo was too fast. Yan Zhenfei's body went limp. Where was the slightest hint of arrogance on his face? Just now, she and Mei had attacked from the front and back. He wanted to take Yi Luo's life, because of Yi Luo's lightning-fast speed. As a result, her palm wind directly clashed against Mei's een claw, which stretched out from the void. Damn slut! Yi Luo intentionally pretended not to notice Mei's sneak attack. Following that, she incited her murderous intent, taking advantage of the situation where she and Mei were unable to retract their attack. Chapter 27:11. Treacherous. Too sinister. Yan Zhenfei was so angry that she gritted her teeth, her expression savage. Her figure speedily retreated backwards, avoiding Yi Luo's palm. She turned around and stared vigilantly at Yi Luo. "Yi Luo, you're just an abandoned woman who has been abandoned by the Overlord, without any power or influence. How dare you lay a hand on the few of us? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to walk to the Miao Stockade village alive?" Yi Luo was tickled. "Before this, you should be more worried if you still have the life to see me walk to the Miao tribe alive. How dare you?" Yan Zhenfei gritted her teeth. "Do you know who I am?" Yi Luo narrowed her eyes as she didn't think much of it. "Do you know, before Xian, and before the Overlord appeared, how did I topple the Battle King's manor, topple the Miao tribes? Former clan leader?" Shock flashed across Yan Zhenfei's eyes. Apparently, he didn't know what had happened to Yi Luo in the northern continent. This look of astonishment made Yi Luo have a new guess. She laughed softly as her gaze seemed to shoot a glance towards Mei's direction. "Miss Yan seems to trust Miss Mei a lot." Yan Zhenfei's pale face darkened. How could she not hear the ridicule in Yi Luo's tone? Indeed, she will appear here. He would help Mei deal with this woman called Yi Luo. It was because of Mei's request. Because Mei had said that this woman called Yi Luo was once favored by His Majesty. When Di Zun was mentioned, Yan Zhenfei thought of the woman she hated so much. Yi Luo. That was the slut who had caused her to fall from the high and mighty miss of the Yan family to this day. She had to rely on her own beauty to drag out an ignoble existence. Especially when he heard the woman's name, Yi Luo. The more Yan Zhenfei wanted to eradicate this Yi Luo, who was similar to Yi Luo in all aspects. From Mei's description, Yi Luo was just an arrogant, despotic, and lawless idiot who relied on the Lord Di Zun's favor. Yi Luo himself did not have any strong points. But now, he had been abandoned by the Overlord. She was just an abandoned woman. Now Yan Zhenfei understood. She was being used by Mei. "I'll believe whoever I like, it's none of your business." Yan Zhenfei suppressed the anger in her heart. Yan Zhenfei was not stupid. If she confronted Mei about this matter at this time, he even used this as an excuse to argue with Mei. In the end, the one who benefited was Yi Luo. In the end, it was still Yi Luo who was watching the show. Yan Zhenfei clenched her fists and suddenly smiled. "Yi Luo, don't compare me to the warlord's mansion and the Miao tribe. Let me tell you, no matter how much ability you have, even if Yi Luo herself is here, this miss can still make you kneel down and beg for mercy." Yan Zhenfei raised her head arrogantly like a rooster that had won a fight. Sun Yutong, come here and tell her who I am. On the other side, Sun Yutong, who was still supporting Plum, trembled slightly when she heard this. He seemed to be instinctively afraid of Yen Zhenfei. I asked you to come over, so why are you still standing there? Yen Zhenfei already had a bad opinion of Mei. Seeing that Sun Yutong was still supporting Mei and ignoring her orders, Yen Zhenfei felt a little annoyed. Instantly, he felt indignant in front of Yi Qing Luo. She vented all her frustrations on Sun Yutong. Sun Yutong was shocked by Yen Zhenfei as she immediately retracted her hand and jogged towards Yen Zhenfei's direction. Mei, who had lost her support, fell heavily to the ground again. However, Chapter 27:12. Sun Yutong jogged over to Yen Zhenfei and called out in a low voice, "Sister Yen, do you need me to repeat myself?" Yen Zhenfei's tone was heavy, full of danger. Sun Yutong was so frightened that her entire body trembled, and her eyes reddened. No need. Sister Yen, don't be angry." Sun Yutong's attitude towards her successfully pleased Yen Zhenfei. It seemed to satisfy her vanity to be above everyone else. Yen Zhenfei intentionally threw a provocative glance at Yi Qing Luo. It seemed to be telling Yi Qing Luo, "See how powerful I am." Towards this, Yi Qing Luo expressed. Plus, he rolled his eyes. In the eyes of Yi Qing Luo, Yen Zhenfei's arrogant behavior was called bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Bullying those who were weaker than him was just to show off his nobility. On the contrary, it made Yen Zhenfei's status even more awkward. Sun Yutong raised her head and looked at Yi Qing Luo. His eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. "Yi Luo, don't think that because of the Overlord's protection, you destroyed the Battle King's residence, destroyed the former Miao tribe, and even destroyed the Northern Wave's royal family. But now you're the Overlord's abandoned wife. Sister Yen is a god you can't afford to offend." Where did this girl learn such Chunibu lines? When Sun Yutong said this, she became more confident. Sister Yen is not someone from the Nirvana realm. She is a distinguished messenger from the upper realm. A messenger from the upper realm? His words caused the onlookers to burst into an uproar. This road was the only way to reach the Miaogu clan. Because of this, most of the carriages that appeared on this small path belonged to the various forces that were heading to the Miaogu clan to watch the Holy Maiden selection. Naturally, they understood very well how unattainable the upper realm was for them. This Miss Yen was actually someone from the upper realm? The way the surrounding people looked at Yen Zhenfei changed. Yen Zhenfei enjoyed this look very much. He enjoyed the feeling of being revered and subdued by tens of thousands of people. The smile on her face became more and more arrogant. There wasn't even half a shred of the wretched and fearful state when he faced Yi Qing Luo earlier. However, reality did not develop in the direction they had imagined. Yi Qing Luo didn't kneel down to beg for mercy because of the shock. On the contrary, he was looking at them with a faint smile. The brilliance between his brows floated, as if he was mocking them, but it also seemed like a casual smile. "The upper realm? Miss Yen? You don't believe me?" Sun Yutong saw Yi Qing Luo's expression and immediately put on a straight face as she took out the invitation letter from the Miaogu family from her sleeve. "Take a good look at it yourself. What's written on the invitation?" Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she fixed her gaze over. On the open invitation letter, there was a delicate handwriting that said, "Palace of Darkness Emissary, Yen Feifei." Dark Palace? Yi Qing Luo muttered these 3 words word by word. He lifted his head. She looked at Yen Zhenfei's smug face, waiting for her to be scared, flustered, and begging for mercy. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes. "What place is this?" The smile on Yen Zhenfei's face froze. Sun Yutong's complacent mood also froze on her face. You're doing this on purpose." Sun Yutong was hopping mad. "Palace of Darkness? Don't you know what kind of place Palace of Darkness is?" "I've only heard of the Imperial Palace." Yi Qing Luo shook her head honestly. Yan Zhenfei's steely green face started to darken bit by bit. Chapter 27:13. When the surrounding crowd heard the name Palace of Darkness, all of their faces turned pale instantly. The way they looked at Yan Zhenfei was not only filled with admiration when they heard that she was a messenger from the upper realm. It was mixed with a sliver of fear. Yes, it was fear. Palace of Darkness. It's the messenger from Palace of Darkness. Is it that Palace of Darkness whose power had expanded to the point where it was second only to the Imperial Palace in just half a month? I heard that. Palace of Darkness had recruited numerous elites, and many cultivators who were rated as geniuses were all recruited by Palace of Darkness. I heard another rumor. As long as one could enter Palace of Darkness and become a disciple of Palace of Darkness, as long as one had an outstanding performance and made a huge contribution to Palace of Darkness, one would be able to become a member of the upper realm directly. Right. I also heard that as long as one entered Palace of Darkness, the speed of advancement is simply shocking. One person mentioned Palace of Darkness. Following that, numerous people started to talk about the rumors that they had heard. One after another. The more they talked, the more mysterious and powerful this Palace of Darkness seemed. Immediately, a few cultivators directly knelt down towards Yan Zhenfei's direction. Miss Messenger. Miss Messenger, I wish to join Palace of Darkness. These people's discussions, plus those few cultivators who knelt down and pleaded. This made Yan Zhenfei's smile become even more arrogant. She looked at Yi Qing Luo provocatively and gave a cold harumph. Yi Luo, I am the messenger from Palace of Darkness, an esteemed messenger from the upper realm. Do you think you can kill me? Her tone was filled with complacency. But Yan Zhenfei's complacency and arrogance. Yi Qing Luo totally didn't put it in her eyes. The current Yi Qing Luo's expression was slightly gloomy as she stared at the name on the invitation letter. In her mind, she swiftly rearranged the surrounding powerhouses' conversation. She roughly knew what kind of place this Palace of Darkness was. According to her understanding, in order to maintain the balance of each plane, Upper Realms powerhouses were absolutely not allowed to appear in Nirvana Realms plane. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the existence of the balanced historian. So, this Palace of Darkness absolutely couldn't be a powerhouse from the upper realm. But where did those rumors regarding Palace of Darkness come from? Wait. Yi Qing Luo's mind cleared up as she thought of something. Yan Zhenfei. Back then, she had escaped with the wolf holy technique and the remaining pharaohs and holy techniques of the dark forces. Although the historian of balance had also interfered in this matter. However, after all, she did not see the balance historian take the people from the dark forces away with her own eyes. On top of that, one of the forces had mentioned it earlier. Joining the gloomy palace would allow one's cultivation speed to skyrocket in a short period of time. It was very similar to the arcane yin qi of the dark forces. This gloom palace, could it be related to the dark forces? This thought made Yi Qing Luo's heart thump. He had to ask Peach to investigate what kind of place the Palace of Darkness was. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo had no mood to continue tangling with Yan Zhenfei. She turned around and was about to enter the carriage to leave. Just as she turned around, Sun Yutong blocked her way. After hearing Big Sister Yan's identity, you were so scared that you wanted to escape? Let me tell you, if you can't appease Sister Yan today, don't even think about leaving this place. Yi Qing Luo. Did she look like she was frightened? Chapter 27:14. A messenger from the upper realm? Miss Yan, as a fake who knows Yi Qing Luo very well, do you think that I don't know who you are? She chuckled softly, and there was a hint of laziness in her tone. Yi Qing Luo's words had just landed. Yan Zhenfei's body froze. Her eyes slowly shifted onto Yi Qing Luo's face. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up frivolously, her tone was indifferent. If you don't wish to blow up this matter, now, move aside. It was clearly just a cold and indifferent voice, but for no reason at all it made one feel pressured. Under this pressure, Yan Zhenfei's face paled. The smile on his face could no longer be maintained. If one were to take a closer look, perhaps one would be able to see that her body was trembling slightly. Why did this woman know her identity? She had obviously concealed everything so well. In everyone's eyes, she was a distinguished envoy from the upper realm. She was the emissary of the Abyss Palace. From the beginning to the end, they were people from the upper realm. No, she could not let this woman expose her identity. She could not be treated as a lowly person from the lower realm. This secret must be hidden forever. The more Yan Zhenfei thought, the more flustered she became. Yi Luo Yan Zhenfei's voice suddenly lowered. She fixed her gaze on Yiqing Luo's eyes, and that pair of beautiful eyes was suddenly tainted with a ball of black fog like ink. The moment Yiqing Luo met that pair of eyes, her heart was beating strangely. In front of his eyes there was a momentary daze. However, in the next instant, a scorching heat surged from his heart. Bit by bit, it burned her consciousness. Her eyelashes fluttered, and her spiritual consciousness became clear. This is Yan Zhenfei wanted to control her? Yiqing Luo asked herself, she who had experienced 2 lives. Her mental state was already solid and indestructible. Her spiritual power was also beyond ordinary people's. Generally speaking, she was not easy to control. What's more, Yan Zhenfei's mental energy was too powerful. How could he control her? But just now, if it wasn't for the profound Heart Jade's reminder, she might really lose her mind. Just as Yiqing Luo was preparing to retaliate, suddenly a large palm covered her eyes. A gush of warm, profound energy entered her eyes at a speed that was neither too fast nor too slow. In an instant, all the controlling power that Yan Zhenfei had injected into her body was swept away. Yiqing Luo was stunned. A familiar plum fragrance wafted into his nose. She frowned. She didn't need to open her eyes to know who it was. Zhu Wuxin. Don't look at her. A cold and indifferent voice floated down from above. The man moved closer to her. The scent of the plum blossom became clearer and entered her nose. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she raised her hand to push Zhu Wu Xian's arm away. Zhu Wuxin's ice-cold voice rang in his ears again. You can't resist her eyes. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth, but the words she wanted to say didn't come out. He was interrupted by Yan Zhenfei's sharp voice. Castle Master of Death God Castle, why are you stopping me? She's mine. Zhu Wu Xian calmly opened his mouth as his eyes were calm. Whoever touches her dies. Yan Zhenfei was so shocked that she retreated a few steps. Her hands were clenched tightly in unwillingness. Castle Master of Death God Castle, don't forget that I'm the one you should help. Whoever touches her dies. Zhu Wu Xian's tone was calm as his icy cold face repeated these few words without any warmth. 5 simple words. Chapter 27:15. Yan Zhenfei didn't seem to use her brain as she stared at Yiqing Luo hysterically. You say she's your person, then do you know that this woman, she's the woman who was abandoned by the Overlord? Zhu Wu Xian's calm face started to fluctuate slightly. His dark and gloomy eyes stared coldly at Yan Zhenfei. This was the first time Yan Zhenfei saw a different kind of emotion from Zhu Wu Xian. This was the proof. What she said earlier had indeed poked Zhu Wu Xian's sore spot. Yan Zhenfei's heart was filled with fear, but thinking of her status in the secluded palace, especially. She didn't wish for Zhu Wu Xian to have any feelings for that ordinary-looking young lady. She mustered up her courage as she screamed out, Castle Lord, don't be cheated by this woman. She used all sorts of methods to seduce the Overlord, and now that the Overlord is tired of playing with her, she's thinking of using you. Castle Lord, she's AB*TCH who can sleep with anyone. Yan Zhenfei had yet to finish her curses. Right in front of her, a gust of icy cold wind blade directly smashed onto her face. Yan Zhenfei cried out miserably. She was thrown onto the ground by that gust of wind. Her beautiful face was lacerated by the hurricane, and thick blood oozed out of her wounds. Yen Zhenfei was so shocked that she covered her face, as she raised her head in terror. "Castle Lord, you hurt my face. Your mouth is very dirty," Zhu Wu Xian said coldly as his emotionless expression revealed a bone-piercing chill. Yen Zhenfei instinctively covered her mouth. She shrank backwards as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian while shivering. Why did all the men with distinguished statuses all stand on that slut Yi Luo's side? Obviously her looks, as compared to Yi Luo, were much more beautiful. Her status and strength were obviously much greater than Yi Luo's. But beside Yi Luo, there was the Overlord in front and Death God Castle's Castle Lord behind, to protect him. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. Yen Zhenfei's fingers, which were covering her face, started to curl up slightly. Tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Her eyelashes were wet, and she put on a pitiful look. "Lord Castle Lord, I just don't want you to be deceived. She is a woman abandoned by His Majesty, an abandoned woman. Everyone in the Northern Waves continent knows that." As she spoke, she tugged hard on Sun Yutong's sleeve. Sun Yutong looked at Zhu Wu Xian in a daze. It wasn't until Yen Zhenfei pulled that Sun Yutong came back to her senses. She looked dazedly at Zhu Wu Xian's face and nodded. "Yes, she's an abandoned wife. This is even better." Zhu Wuxin's cold voice was extremely quiet. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she seemed to hear a hint of joy in his voice. Zhu Wuxin? Pleasure? No matter how he thought about it, he felt that words related to emotions had nothing to do with Zhu Wuxin. As soon as Zhu Wu Xian's voice fell, his long arms suddenly pulled the girl in front of him into his embrace. His large palm was still pressed against the girl's eyes, not allowing her to open her eyes. "Dmo Xian doesn't want her, then she belongs to me alone." Zhu Wu Xian lowered his head and his cold, thin lips pressed on the girl's head. Yen Zhenfei and Sun Yutong covered their mouths and cried out in shock. Was the Lord Castle Lord crazy? An abandoned wife that the Overlord didn't want actually treated her like a treasure? That damn Yi Luo. Chapter 27:16. Cough cough. Yiqing Luo, who had been isolated outside the battlefield, gave a few dry cough. She raised her hand and through her sleeves, she placed it on Zhu Wu Xian's wrist, which was covering her eyes. "Zhu Wu Xian, you're chatting so happily, can you move your hand away?" Zhu Wu Xian's arm stiffened slightly. After some time, he moved his hand away. Yiqing Luo's eyes regained its brightness. She squinted her eyes as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian indifferently. "Please move this hand away." She pointed to the hand on her shoulder. Zhu Wu Xian looked at her deeply. His gaze was deep, as though he wanted to carve her looks into his heart. It was until Yiqing Luo's heart started to feel goosebumps when he slowly released his hand. Yiqing Luo speedily shifted a few steps to the side, distancing herself from Zhu Wu Xian's boundary. What a joke! Her dear Ah Xian was still waiting for her in the carriage. If her dear Ah Xian saw that she was touched by another man, his emotions might fluctuate again. The vinegar jar would be thrown around. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as her tone was distant. "Master Zhu, don't say such things which will cause others to misunderstand. You and I are not familiar." Zhu Wu Xian's gaze suddenly turned chilly. That cold face also turned slightly pale. "Yi Luo, don't be ungrateful." Yen Zhenfei couldn't take it anymore. "Castle Lord is willing to speak up for you, why are you still pretending?" Yen Zhenfei was about to go crazy from anger. To be more precise, she was about to go crazy from jealousy. She was jealous of Yi Luo's good luck. Jealous of Yi Luo, who was able to obtain the Overlord's love and now Zhu Wu Xian's special treatment. Secluded Palace and Death God Castle had a collaboration. Yen Zhenfei was the clearest. Zhu Wu Xian, this person, like his name, had no heart. There was no one who could make him take a second look. Except for Yiqing Luo. Unfortunately, Yi Qing Luo didn't know about it. She actually used such an attitude to treat Castle Lord. Was she intentionally relying on Castle Lord's special treatment to be pampered and arrogant? Hearing Yan Zhenfei's voice, Yi Qing Luo wasn't interested in her words. She frowned slightly as she sized Yan Zhenfei up carefully. Yan Zhenfei had some kind of mysterious power. Through her eyes, she was able to influence the minds of others and control them. Was this mysterious force related to the Palace of Gloomy Shadows? Was it related to the dark forces? If that was the case, it seemed that the dark forces were not going to give up. Do you still want to make a comeback by using the reputation of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? She had to ask Jun Qingwu about this matter as soon as possible. Let Jun Qingwu investigate, like this, with the dark forces as the background, using the upper realm as a gimmick, built the so-called Palace of Darkness, and accepted countless talented disciples of the mystic grade. Does this count as a violation of the Plane's Treaty of Equilibrium? Most importantly, if this matter was really as she had guessed, the venom in Dmo Xian's body must be removed as soon as possible. After all, it was obvious that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness wanted to surpass the Arch Palace. Before this, because of Feng Ling and the granny of the Imperial Palace, the Imperial Palace's situation had changed. It was no longer as glorious as it was when it was at its peak. Now there was the Abyss Palace. As the Emperor of the Imperial Palace, Dmo Xian had to lead the Imperial Palace's disciples to suppress the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. What are you looking at? Yan Zhenfei felt as though she was being scrutinized by Yi Qing Luo's gaze, as though she wasn't wearing any clothes. But because Zhu Wu Xian was by the side. Chapter 27:17. Yi Qing Luo directly retracted her gaze as she turned around and boarded the little carriage, pulling the horse rope and sitting properly. This time there was Zhu Wu Xian, the great Buddha, around. No one stopped her. Yi Qing Luo directly pulled the carriage, passing by Yan Zhenfei as she headed towards the small path in front. She left? Mei finally held her chest as she stood up, only to see Yi Qing Luo's little carriage moving forward without even turning her head back. She hurriedly stumbled over to Yan Zhenfei's side as she panted, "Fei why did you let her go? If she left, would she let us off?" Before she could finish her words, Yan Zhenfei's face had already turned black as she swatted Mei's hand away. "Not letting me off or not letting you off? You know it clearly in your heart." Saying that, she gave a cold harumph and didn't look at Mei anymore. Yan Zhenfei cupped her hands towards Zhu Wu Xian's direction. That face, which was lacerated by profound qi, was still bleeding. "Castle Lord, I'll make a move first." Zhu Wu Xian didn't even bother to take a look at her. Instead, he used a pair of icy cold eyes, as he fixed his gaze on the direction which Yi Qing Luo had left towards. Following that, he took a step forward and chased after her. Yan Zhenfei, who was neglected, had an ugly expression on her face, as she was extremely embarrassed. She clenched her teeth as she stomped her feet, flicking her sleeves as she quickly returned to her own carriage. On the other side, Mei was swung by Yan Zhenfei, and her originally tottering body totally couldn't stand properly as she fell onto the ground. Her face turned slightly pale as her eyes stared in shock at Yan Zhenfei's departing figure. Following that, her gaze shot towards the yes-man Sun Yutong, who was standing by the side. The moment Mei made eye contact with her, Sun Yutong seemed as though she was shocked as her entire body shuddered. She looked at Mei for a long time as her red lips moved. Just as she was about to say something, a lady's stern voice was heard from the carriage in front. "Sun Yutong, come over." Sun Yutong immediately shut her mouth as her brows drooped downwards, as she obediently walked towards the carriage in front. Mei's expression was instantly filled with gloomy clouds. Yi Qing Luo controlled the little carriage, and after it was far away from Yan Zhenfei and the rest, she released the horse rope. With her small carriage, it would be difficult for her to catch up with Gui Wu and the others. Moreover, instead of chasing after that group of bad friends, She might as well spend time with her dear Ah Xian, get along with each other, and be affectionate. Yiqing Luo was preparing to return to the carriage to comfort her and kiss Ah Xian. His bowed body suddenly stiffened. Her ears twitched and her brows furrowed. She straightened her body and looked at the back of the carriage. As expected, he saw a figure that was burning like a raging fire rapidly approaching. Yiqing Luo stopped the carriage. That figure steadily stopped in front of her. It brought along a gust of cold wind. "Why are you following me?" Yiqing Luo's brows creased. "Death God Castle's Castle Lord, as the collaborator of the Palace of Darkness, aren't you afraid of others laughing at you for running over to chase after me, an abandoned woman who has made enemies with the Palace of Darkness envoy? You don't like Gloomy Palace." His voice was very calm, and no emotions could be heard from it. "Then I'll cancel my cooperation with them." Yiqing Luo, although she indeed didn't want to see Chu Wu Xian and the Palace of Darkness working together. But this had nothing to do with other superfluous feelings. Only, she didn't wish for the day that she would become enemies with this Chu Wu Xian who had saved her several times, and had an extremely deep obsession towards the original owner. But, Chu Wu Xian's words, why did it sound like? Chapter 27:18. Zhu Wu Xian should continue to cooperate with the Nether Palace. He was bound to clash with her. Zhu Wu Xian wouldn't cooperate with the Nether Palace, right? Why did it feel as though Zhu Wu Xian didn't want the throne but the beauty? Zhu Wu Xian didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking as his dark pupils stared coldly at her. His gaze was focused without blinking. Following that, he said something shocking. "Yiqing Luo, since you've already been abandoned by Diamoxian, then from now onwards, follow me." Yiqing Luo. What was Zhu Wu Xian thinking? That. Yiqing Luo swallowed a mouthful of saliva. "Don't joke around. It's not a joke." Zhu Wu Xian suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed one of her arms as his eyes turned icy cold, as his pupils turned black. "He doesn't want you, I do." Zhu Wu Xian's expression was unprecedentedly serious. His brows creased as his gaze turned deeper, as though it was a bottomless deep pond. Yiqing Luo took a step back as she tried to retract her hand. But Zhu Wu Xian's strength was extremely strong. She couldn't struggle free at all. "Yiqing Luo, you're mine. You promised me that you will become my wife." Zhu Wu Xian pursed his lips as his expression was extremely serious and solemn. He said it word by word, very clearly and with great emphasis on enunciating each word. He had guts, as though he was trying to memorize some lines. This was especially so since Zhu Wuxin was using such an expressionless face to say those words. Extremely inconsistent. Zhu Wu Xian couldn't sense Yiqing Luo's inner world. He continued, spitting out each word, "Between you and me, there's only one Diamoxian. Now that there's no Diamoxian, you should follow me in peace and become my bride. I can assure you that I will absolutely not abandon you." Yiqing Luo. She was struck by lightning once again. After Zhu Wu Xian finished his words, that hand which was holding Yiqing Luo suddenly exerted force as he pulled Yiqing Luo's body into his arms. At the same time, Yiqing Luo felt an intense murderous intent assaulting her. Yiqing Luo quivered as she abruptly raised her hand and pushed Zhu Wu Xian away. Wait. She quickly took a few steps back. After getting far away from Zhu Wu Xian, she raised her head and raised her voice to express her loyalty. "Young Master Zhu, let's not talk about whether or not Ah Xian has abandoned me. Even if it's true, I will not follow you." Zhu Wuxin's eyes turned cold. Yiqing Luo coughed lightly and continued, "Between us, even if there's no Ah Xian, I will not become your bride. Because, no matter if we're together or married, it's all because of love." At this point, she paused and her tone became unprecedentedly serious. "Chu Wuxin, I don't love you. So, regardless of whether Ah Xian is here or not, I will not be with you, much less marry you. A cool breeze blew. On both sides of the path, the dense leaves rustled. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not disperse the strange atmosphere between the two of them. After a long time, until Yiqing Luo felt a little tired from standing, she then gave up the idea of waiting for Zhu Wu Xian's reaction. She raised her brows and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She asked indifferently, "Zhu Wuxin, who taught you what you said just now?" Zhu Wu Xian's emotionless face froze slightly. His gaze also had an undetectable change at this instant. "These words are not something you can say." Yiqing Luo indicated that every time Zhu Wu Xian faced her, the most he would say were these few sentences. Chapter 27:19. Just like today, pulling her along in such a serious manner, various overbearing and provocative actions as well as words. There was absolutely someone who was teaching him. Furthermore, Zhu Wuxin had said such a simple line awkwardly and stutteringly. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed as though he had memorized it. A faint blush appeared on Zhu Wuxin's cold face. His eyes, which were staring at Yiqing Luo, subconsciously looked towards other places. This further confirmed Yiqing Luo's guess. She couldn't help but laughed out. "I say, Master Zhu, surely you aren't flirting with me, right?" Zhu Wu Xian's expression instantly turned gloomy. His jet-black pupils were surging with a chilly glint. His icy cold voice rang, "What's so funny about this? If it was anyone else, it indeed wouldn't be funny." Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian. "But it's you. The dignified castle lord of Death God Castle, you who can create an iceberg no matter where you go, actually know how to flirt." Her eyes curved into a smile. "Who is the person who taught you?" "He actually taught you to use such a lousy method." Zhu Wu Xian's jade-like face looked even colder. He was expressionless as he looked at Yiqing Luo silently. Especially when he saw Yiqing Luo's smiling face. His gaze turned cold, as though a cold glint flashed past his eyes, revealing a cold and charming glint. All of a sudden, his figure moved. Two large palms pressed heavily on Yiqing Luo's shoulders. The man's plum fragrance assailed her nostrils. Yiqing Luo was just about to move. The strength on her shoulders pressed even tighter. She raised her hand. But at the next moment, it was held tightly by the man's large palm. Women's strength had always been inferior to men. Especially for men like Zhu Wu Xian. Yiqing Luo couldn't struggle at all. Zhu Wu Xian's black pupils were sparkling with a clear and crystalline cold glint as his slightly pale lips curled into an inexplicable cold arc. Yiqing Luo was stunned by this Zhu Wu Xian. All along, Zhu Wu Xian's emotions were extremely indifferent, as though he had no emotions at all. This was the first time Yiqing Luo saw such a rich expression on Zhu Wu Xian's face, revealing a sliver of coldness. "Is it funny?" Zhu Wuxin's voice was extremely cold. It was as if a block of ice had sunk into her heart. His hands were wide and big. With one hand, he easily clasped both of her wrists and pressed them against a thick tree trunk behind her. "Is my feelings for you so funny?" He repeated the words again, his dark eyes filled with a frightening aura. "Yes, I want you. I want to be with you and fulfill the promise we made when we were young. Did I do anything wrong?" Zhu Wuxin's voice also became increasingly heavy. Like a large bell, it pounded on Yiqing Luo's heart. Zhu Wu Xian fixed his eyes on her face and his voice became heavier. "Because it's you, that's why I'll take great pains to please you. I want to see you, because of my words to reveal the smile that you had when you were facing Dmo Xian." Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. His heart skipped a beat. That was right, Zhu Wuxin was not wrong. It was just that he was too stubborn about the past. He was unable to let go of the warmth he had met for the first time in his life. That warmth had now been transferred to another soul. It had become another soul. This was not Zhu Wu Xian's fault. Like Zhu Wu Xian, he could be called as a heartless person. Chapter 27:20. She shouldn't laugh. She shouldn't feel that Zhu Wu Xian's action of flirting with her was especially silly. She could choose not to accept Zhu Wu Xian. She could reject Zhu Wu Xian. But she couldn't make fun of Zhu Wu Xian's changes in order to flirt with her. And she couldn't look down on Zhu Wu Xian's stubborn heart because of her. Her pink lips moved as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian. So, sorry? I'm not. Before she could even finish her words of apology. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and locked onto Yiqing Luo's waist. An extremely elegant plum fragrance kept gushing into her nose. Yiqing Luo's pupils gradually enlarged. Zhu Wu Xian's grave and stern face. What did he want to do? Was he going to forcefully kiss her? She realized Zhu Wu Xian's crazy actions. Yiqing Luo's pupils enlarged. Her hands, which were restrained, immediately started to struggle. The man pressed on her, not willing to let go of her. An overbearing and cold man's aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows crease tightly. Her charming eyes turned slightly chilly as she moved her face away to avoid Zhu Wu Xian's kiss. Just as she was about to lift her leg to attack Zhu Wu Xian and escape, suddenly, a burst of dense, profound qi came pressing over. At the next instant, Yiqing Luo's body felt light. Her body broke away from Zhu Wu Xian's control. The elegant sandalwood fragrance instantly enveloped her petite body, expelling the other aura from her body. Between her breath, there was only that familiar and reassuring sandalwood fragrance. But faintly there was a heartbeat. Yiqing Luo's heart instantly calmed down. At that instant, Yiqing Luo almost couldn't feel Zhu Wu Xian's existence at all. Her heart was filled with the man in front of her. Ah Xian! Diamo Xian hugged her tightly. His long arms were extremely tight. That peerless face was filled with sullen anger. Especially when he looked at Yiqing Luo, the anger in his eyes was even more intense. But amidst the anger, there was also agitation and grievance. Diamo Xian? After Zhu Wu Xian avoided that burst of profound qi attack, he frowned as he looked at the man who had disturbed him. His eyes darkened. Why are you here? Diamo Xian's deep peach blossom eyes squinted, reflecting an extremely icy cold indifference. His thin lips were tightly pursed, filled with displeasure. Lil Luo is mine, no one is allowed to touch her. As he was saying that, his arms hugged Yiqing Luo tightly, declaring his sovereignty. Zhu Wuxin's frown deepened. He shifted his gaze onto Yiqing Luo. Didn't you say that he abandoned you? Yiqing Luo was just about to look at Zhu Wu Xian when Diamo Xian suddenly hugged her and turned her around. Her line of sight was also blocked by his tall body. Was she not allowed to see Zhu Wuxin? Compared to the Diamo Xian, who would make a move at the slightest disagreement. Right now, no matter how angry he was, no matter how much he loathed Zhu Wuxin, he still did not attack Zhu Wu Xian. This childish action made Yiqing Luo's brows tinged with a smile. She automatically hugged Diamo Xian's waist, as she patted his back in a soothing manner. Following that, in Diamo Xian's arms, she calmly replied Zhu Wu Xian's words. I've never said that I was abandoned. Just that. I'm too lazy to explain. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes flickered. Actually, he himself understood it very well. How could the Diamo Xian, who was poisoned by the love goo, possibly abandon Yiqing Luo? However, in his heart there was still some hope that he would get lucky. Or even hope. Diamo Xian had really abandoned Yiqing Luo. Chapter 27-21. But Yiqing Luo's words completely shattered all his wishful thinking. Even without Diamo Xian, Yiqing Luo wouldn't be together with him. All the promises in the past had turned into nothingness. Or perhaps, he was the only one who remembered the promise in the past. Diamo Xian's body blocked her and Zhu Wu Xian's line of sight. Yiqing Luo couldn't see Zhu Wu Xian's current emotions. She didn't know what this long silence meant. She pursed her lips as she deliberated over her words and continued, Master Zhu, I'm very sorry. Previously I made fun of your hard work for me and I'm also very sorry to reject you. But matters of the heart shouldn't be dragged around. I won't give you any chance, any hope. This is my responsibility towards you, and also my own feelings. Zhu Wu Xian gave a low laugh. That laugh was a little desolate and self-deprecating. That laughter made Yiqing Luo's heart feel a little uneasy. She was just about to move her body to check on Zhu Wu Xian's condition. But the moment she moved, she was wrapped even tighter by Diamo Xian's arms. I won't let you see him, I won't. His childish voice was filled with heartache. He must have been made to stay in the carriage earlier, witnessing the scene where she was almost forcefully kissed by Zhu Wu Xian. The current Diamo Xian's enmity towards Zhu Wu Xian was extremely heavy. Yiqing Luo listened to him and didn't move again. She cleared her throat and continued, Master Zhu, this is all I have to say. I hope that the next time we meet, you and I are not enemies. Saying that, she patted Diamo Xian's hand. Ah Xian, let's return to the carriage. Diamo Xian grabbed her hand. He even used his tall and sturdy body to block her completely. He just refused to let Zhu Wu Xian see any shadow of her. If it's an enemy, won't you not show any mercy? Suddenly, the silent Zhu Wu Xian opened his mouth at the instant when Yiqing Luo turned around. His voice was slightly hoarse, and it was filled with obvious desolation, as though he knew the outcome but still stubbornly wanted to know an answer that made his heart ache. Yiqing Luo's footsteps paused slightly. After some time, she slowly opened her mouth. Yes. Indeed, this answer would make Zhu Wu Xian's heart ache. He laughed in a low voice and closed his eyes in a self-mocking manner, facing Yiqing Luo. Even though he knew it was pain on top of pain. However, he would only stop when his heart went numb from the pain. He almost couldn't understand himself. Yiqing Luo, regardless of when she was young, she was still her current self. Could easily, he was unable to control his emotions. Zhu Wuxin turned around, unwilling to look at the two people who were leaning against each other. His footsteps were light as he walked in the opposite direction. His feet stepped on the piled-up leaves. Rustling sounds could be heard. It was like the blood in his heart. Drop by drop, it dripped down. The pain was indescribable. It seemed like the mystical palace was right towards Yiqing Luo. He was ultimately unable to be as cold as what he said. He had plenty of ways to go against Diamo Xian. Then forcefully snatched Yiqing Luo from Diamo Xian's arms. He had his ways. He would rather die in glory than live in disgrace. What he couldn't have was the girl who had betrayed their promise. He could totally destroy it. But he couldn't do it. He knew. The minute he did this, that young lady would hate him. That young lady's face would no longer show a smile that could move his heart. That young lady would no longer treat him with respect. That young lady. Chapter 27-22. Zhu Wu Xian. Suddenly, the young lady behind him called out to him. It was almost a reflex action as he speedily turned his head back. But what he saw was still Diamo Xian's back view. The young lady's body was still completely covered by Diamo Xian. Even he himself didn't notice it. His brows drooped down as his gaze turned colder. 1 month ago, with the help of those few powerhouses in Joy Sect, we got the news that Ah Xian might have been affected by the parasite poison. Is it related to you? Yiqing Luo's voice was very soft and her tone was very slow. She had no intention to question him. Zhu Wu Xian's body stiffened as he frowned slightly. You think it's me? I want to hear your answer. Yiqing Luo replied softly. Zhu Wu Xian froze for a moment until his thin lips felt dry before he moved, as though he was ridiculing her. If I say it's not, will you believe me? I believe you. Almost without any hesitation, the young lady replied firmly. If you say it's not you, then it's definitely not you. The young lady's words were like something as it struck Zhu Wu Xian's heart fiercely. His tall and sturdy body shook violently. His usually icy cold eyes also uncontrollably widened by a few degrees. She said, "If you say it's not you, then it's definitely not you." His tone was so certain. That unhesitant determination. He couldn't control his trembling body. At this moment, he was actually rejoicing that Yi Qing Luo was nestled in Diamo Xian's arms and couldn't see his current predicament. He shut his eyes forcefully, trying his best to maintain the calmness in his voice as he slowly spat out 2 words, "No." Saying that, Zhu Wu Xian seemed as though he was escaping. In a blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of the street. The wind was still blowing against the surrounding dense leaves. Yi Qing Luo wasn't able to sense Zhu Wu Xian's presence. She raised her hand and patted Diamo Xian's chest. "All right, he's already gone. Xian can let go of me." Not letting go. Diamo Xian stubbornly tightened his arms as he carried her up the little carriage. "Be good, we still have to chase up to Xiao Yi and the rest." Yi Qing Luo hooked his neck as she kissed his lips. This move was usually an extremely useful move. But now, Diamo Xian did not fall for this trick. Although after being kissed, Diamo Xian revealed a smile, but he still hugged Yi Qing Luo tightly, not willing to let go no matter what. Yi Qing Luo had no choice but to carry such a big lump of dog-type pet and support the small carriage. By the time the carriage regained its usual speed, Yi Qing Luo then loosened the reins and let the horse move on its own to search for its companion. She, on the other hand, dragged all the large pets back to the carriage. "Xian is angry?" Yi Qing Luo adjusted her position in Diamo Xian's arms. She pressed Diamo Xian onto the carriage. She was facing Diamo Xian, straddling his lap. Her hands hooked onto Diamo Xian's neck. Her pair of charming eyes were filled with smiles. The young lady's delicate features were magnified in Diamo Xian's pupils. The fragrance of the young girl kept drilling into his nose. Diamo Xian's expression turned gentler. However, he still remembered his anger. Lil Luo is not obedient. Lil Luo was carried by someone else. Now, aren't we letting Xian disinfect? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she leaned her body into Diamo Xian's arms. Now my body is filled with Xian's scent. Diamo Xian's eyes shone as his tall nose twitched, as though he was really smelling Yi Qing Luo's scent. Chapter 27-23. Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved even more. She circled her arms around Diamo Xian's neck as her voice was extremely low, intentionally revealing a slight hoarse tone. "So, Xian is still angry with me?" Diamo Xian's inky pupils were deep as he stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. That gaze seemed to be mixed with a blazing flame. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks were slightly flushed. This man, no matter what he had become, when he wanted her, he wouldn't conceal his gaze at all. Ever since Diamo Xian was poisoned, she didn't dare to let Diamo Xian's emotions fluctuate too much. The most intimate action with Diamo Xian, it would probably just be kissing, hugging and raising high. But Diamo Xian, who was poisoned by the love goo, his self-control wasn't that good. There would always be a few times of misfire. Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to use the previous reward method to soothe Diamo Xian. At this moment, Diamo Xian's eyes were filled with emotions. It was extremely obvious. She coughed lightly as her arms, which were circling around Diamo Xian's neck, slowly slid down. "Xian, we are reaching the Miao Gu family soon." Only, her hand had just slid to Diamo Xian's shoulder. One of her hands was held tightly by the man's big palm. Following that, her body suddenly fell forward. She crashed heavily into the man's broad embrace. Following that, the man's strong aura pressed down on her in an overwhelming manner. His lips fiercely captured hers. His aura was wild and overbearing. So overbearing that she didn't have any extra rationality to consider other things. This kiss lasted for a very long time. So long that Yi Qing Luo felt that she was about to suffocate. Outside, a white horse's neigh was heard. Diamo Xian then let go of Yi Qing Luo. His arms were still tightly wrapped around her. That strength seemed as though it wanted to merge into her body. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that something was pressing against her. Her entire body felt weak as she laid in Dmo Xian's arms, her face flushed red as she panted heavily. Outside the carriage, a few familiar voices were heard. "You're already at the Miao Gu family, why aren't you out yet? The young couple is sitting alone in a horse carriage. Why do you think it's for?" Yan Xiaoyi's teasing voice could be heard. Apparently, she was taking revenge on Yiqing Luo for teasing her and Qiao Jin. Yiqing Luo raised her blushing face as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. "You see, I've already told you that we're about to reach the Miao tribe and you're still acting in this manner. Aren't you making a joke out of yourself?" She glared at him. Not only did it not make the man show the same aggrieved expression as before. Instead, his eyes darkened and he tightened his grip. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel. The feeling of something pressing against her became even more obvious. What the hell? Had Dmo Xian really gone crazy? Yiqing Luo's face turned even redder. She pursed her lips and pretended to be displeased. "Stop messing around." Dmo Xian's body suddenly sunk as half of his chest pressed against Yiqing Luo's body. His hoarse voice carried a hint of grievance. "I was so obedient, sitting in the carriage. This is the reward you should give me. You can't be angry. Yiqing Luo, this honey trap. It was totally against the rules." Yiqing Luo's blood tank was about to be emptied. But Dmo Xian was indeed very obedient earlier. He endured until Zhu Wu Xian wanted to forcefully kiss her before he appeared. She intentionally put on a straight face as it slowly softened. Chapter 27-24. Dmo Xian was insatiable as he tightened his arms further. "Then? I'll let you off now, but after this matter is over, I want the same reward as before." Yiqing Luo, even though he was poisoned by love goo, he did not forget his black-bellied nature. What kind of reward was that? Had it taken root in his brain? Why was he always thinking about this? The laughter outside the carriage became more and more unbridled. Yan Xiaoyi used that kind of teasing tone as she knocked on the carriage's window. "I say, Qing Luo, there must be a limit to being intimate. There are still quite a number of powerhouses preparing to enter the Miao tribe, and if you continue to block here, you will be surrounded by people." Yiqing Luo pushed Dmo Xian's chest resentfully. "All right, stop fooling around, let's go down." Dmo Xian refused to let go and continued to rub her into his arms. His tone was one of shamelessness and stubbornness. "If Lil Luo doesn't agree, I won't let go. I won't let them go." Saying that, his jet-black tranquil peach blossom eyes carefully scrutinized Yiqing Luo's expression. As if he was afraid that she would be angry, he quickly added, "It's Xiao Luo who is not obedient. You want me to wait for you obediently, yet you let others carry you. Little Luo is mine. Who said that he was poisoned by the love goo and couldn't think? This bastard's black-bellied and cunning was simply ingrained in his bones." Yiqing Luo heard the laughter outside and knew that Yan Xiaoyi's words were right. There were also quite a number of influential figures that entered the Miao tribe one after another. Their carriage was small, but it was also blocking the way. After all, it was a bad influence. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at Dmo Xian, as she helplessly agreed. It couldn't be helped. She could only choose to spoil her man. "But if you want the reward, Xian has to promise me something." Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. Dmo Xian had already let go of her delicate body when he got the answer he wanted. The next moment, he was pressed against the side of the carriage by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo raised one knee and knelt down in between Dmo Xian's two crescent moons. He reached into the profound phoenix ring and took out a half-mask with golden edges. She took the mask and gestured at Dmo Xian's face for a while. A satisfied smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This mask was made for Dmo Xian during this period of time, according to the shape of his face. Her refining skills were only at the entry level. Fortunately, she had specially refined the mask with a third-grade holy fire. Although the mask did not have any additional special effects, it was still extremely exquisite in terms of aesthetic. Especially when she put the mask on Emotien's face. The effects were simply too shocking. The gold-rimmed mask accentuated Emotien's well-defined facial lines. Her peach blossom eyes seemed to contain all the light in the world, and they were extremely resplendent. The mask only covered the upper half of Emotien's face. It revealed the elegant curve of his chin and his thin lips. It was both mysterious and noble. He was as handsome as a deity that had descended to the world. Yiqing Luo had been looking at Emotien's face for such a long period of time every day. At this moment, he could not help but lose his soul. Until outside the carriage, Yan Xiaoyi's slightly anxious voice was heard. "Qing Luo, if the both of you don't come out, I'm going in." Yiqing Luo then retracted her gaze absent-mindedly. Emotien's slender fingers caressed the mask on his face. His eyes were tainted with a smile. "Lil Luo or likes the look of me wearing a mask?" Yiqing Luo expressed that this action was simply too tempting and she almost couldn't control herself. Chapter 27-25. Emotien's situation was slightly special. If it wasn't necessary, Yiqing Luo didn't wish for anyone to recognize Emotien. Because of this, Yiqing Luo specially kept away the purple robe which Emotien usually wore. Instead, she changed him into a simple silver-colored robe. His usually untidy black hair was also neatly tied into a crown by Yiqing Luo. Coupled with the half-face mask, it was impossible. His entire temperament gave off an extremely dignified and cold, yet noble and elegant feeling. As for Yiqing Luo, she was dressed in a long red robe, her long black hair was tied up simply with a cherry blossom hairpin. Her face was lightly and elegantly made up, which accentuated that delicate and pretty face of hers, with a few hints of tenderness. Especially when she was standing beside Emotien. But her aura didn't drop one bit. The appearance of the two made the bustling Miao tribe entrance fall into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned by these two who seemed as though they had descended from the sky. Even Yan Xiaoyi, who wanted to tease them, had her mouth opened wide in shock, as all the teasing words were stuck in her throat, unable to be spat out. Yiqing Luo just dragged her stunning kissing Xian, as she walked to the middle of Yan Xiaoyi and the others. Those people seemed as though they had just awoken from a dream. Even the usually silent Gui Wu stared at Emotien, as he said calmly, "Indeed a evildoer." Yan Xiaoyi pointed at Emotien as she coughed violently. You made a mask for the Overlord? This half-exposed, isn't it just too tempting?" Her words had just ended, but she was violently pulled over by a strong force. Xiao Jin's face turned slightly black, as he held Yan Xiaoyi's petite body, as his voice was suppressed to a very low tone, with a warning tone, "Are you finding me ugly?" This voice was obviously a laugh, but when Yan Xiaoyi heard it, she felt a chill down her spine. Her lips trembled as she laughed dryly. How could that be? Jin is the most handsome in my heart." "In that case, you still think I'm ugly?" Xiao Jin laughed sinisterly. Yan Xiaoyi had yet to open her mouth. Emotien had already wrapped his arm around Yiqing Luo's slender waist as he walked past her. He didn't forget to throw down a cold sentence. "Not only do I think you're ugly, I also think your abs aren't good enough." Yan Xiaoyi. Damn it. Can't we turn the page on this abs joke? Was he taking revenge on her for teasing them outside the carriage? F***ck. This husband and wife were really not willing to suffer any losses. Can we still be brothers happily? Yan Xiaoyi was filled with grief and indignation, but she could not express it. The force on his waist indicated that Xiao Jin was truly unhappy. Rebuking Yiqing Luo or coaxing his own slut Jin, which was more important? Of course, coaxing a man was more important. Yan Xiaoyi expressed that it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Once she had coaxed Jin, she would come back for another round. Only then did the people in the surroundings regain their senses. After recognizing Yi Qing Luo's identity, all of their faces turned extremely ugly. A few well-dressed young ladies got off the carriage and whispered, "Isn't that Yi Luo, who was abandoned by His Majesty? Why is she here as well?" I heard that the previous Miao clan leader and eldest young Miss Miao had offended her, so they were locked up by Qinyuesek's sovereign. Then she still has the cheek to take part in the Miao tribe's sacred maiden selection? Isn't she afraid that the Miao clansmen would chase her out? Chapter 27-26. The whispers of the ladies soon attracted the attention of the surrounding people. There was news about Di Zun abandoning an ordinary-looking woman. The North Continent and even the Nirvana realm had been in an uproar. But there were quite a number of people, such as those small forces who were not qualified to attend Qinyuesek's birthday celebration, had never seen Yi Qing Luo before. Now that they saw this legendary lady who had seduced the Overlord, they all came forward to take a look. A few of them started to gossip. "This woman is really amazing. She was just abandoned by the Overlord and now she hooked up with a new lover. Who is that gentleman? He looks extraordinary. He must have a distinguished identity. This vixen is so ugly and ordinary, how could she always seduce so many handsome and distinguished men? She's living well. Annoying. What are you talking about?" The ladies pouted shyly for a while before continuing. "But what you said is not without reason. That gentleman must have been cheated by that vixen." The crowd's attention shifted from Yi Qing Luo to the man beside her. They were all guessing who this man was. After all, he dared to want the Overlord's abandoned wife? One must know that men's possessiveness was very strong, even if it was the woman who was abandoned by himself. Similarly, he could not let other men dip their hands in. So either this man didn't know that Yi Luo had been with the Overlord, or he was confident enough to think that he could defeat Di Zun. Yi Qing Luo didn't put the crowd's discussion to heart. Just at this moment, the carriage that Yan Xiao Yi and the rest were in moved. A slender and tall figure walked down from the carriage. That was an extremely exquisite and beautiful lady, dressed in a dark blue long dress, her black hair scattered loosely at the back of her head. Her entire person emitted a kind of cold and elegant noble temperament. When the crowd's eyes met that lady's face, they were so shocked that they almost cried out. That's the lady we met at the restaurant that day? Yes, that's her. I remember it clearly. She is the Overlord's official wife? The real mistress of the palace? That day I was in the restaurant. I saw with my own eyes that the Overlord left Yi Luo and walked to this woman. Furthermore, their relationship was extremely intimate. They were hugging and hugging each other. This woman is definitely the mistress of the Imperial Palace. What's going on? Why is the mistress of the Imperial Palace sitting in Yi Luo's carriage? Isn't that carriage Master Gui Wu's? Maybe the mistress of the Imperial Palace knows Gui Wu, so she gave him face and reluctantly sat in the same carriage with Yi Luo and his gang of scoundrels? Everyone expressed their opinions one after another. At this moment, a luxurious carriage came from the side. Wasn't the one who had just been beaten to the ground by Zhu Wu Xian Mei? Her injuries seemed to have mostly recovered. However, his face was slightly pale, coupled with the flirtatious expression on her face that could not be concealed. She had a different kind of charm. Under the support of a maid, she walked down the carriage. Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed as though it was stained with poison as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo, giving a cold laugh. Don't forget that day at the Peach Blossom restaurant, Yi Luo was submissive towards this mistress of the Imperial Palace, totally with the attitude of a concubine, I think.